Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Hogwarts. I am the only one who is a cultivator. Chapter 121. Voldemort was in trouble, and Harry and his team's final exam was a complete success, but it was not over yet, because although they successfully rescued their classmates who were captured by the basilisk and thwarted Voldemort's conspiracy, they also violated the at least 20 school rules. Yes, at least 20, and among these at least 20 school rules, at least half are related to Yifeng. For example, you are not allowed to use destructive talismans or magic items in the school. You are absolutely not allowed to study, let alone use black magic. You are not allowed to enter the Forbidden Forest at will, and you are not allowed to capture magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest, etc. Of course, although Yifeng and the others broke many school rules, and the school rules they broke were enough to expel them, but because they foiled Voldemort's conspiracy, defeated the terrifying basilisk and rescued Hogwarts, so not only were they not expelled, but they were awarded the honor of Special Contribution Award. As a result, it can only be said that Gryffindor will always be Gryffindor. Yifeng and the others have violated so many school rules that their points have almost been deducted into negative numbers. However, after receiving extra points from Dumbledore, Gryffindor's score became the first among the four houses, 1. In the original show, only the Special Contribution Awards of Harry and Ronald allowed Gryffindors to win the House Cup. Now there are 4 such honors, so although the semester has not really ended, the House Cup has been killed in advance. Because with this extra point, other colleges will never be able to catch up unless they can find at least 2 Voldemorts to kill. With Voldemort gone, Yifeng suddenly felt like he didn't know what to do, because Hogwarts was so calm and peaceful without Voldemort. As for the final exam arranged by the school, this thing is completely meaningless to Yifeng, even if the difficulty of the school exam has been increased by more than 1 level because of his talismans. Therefore, the day after receiving the Special Contribution Award issued by Dumbledore, Yifeng turned into a salty fish. He was completely uninterested in class because it was nearing the end of the semester and even top students like Hermione were studying hard. No one will waste time on eating, drinking and having fun. It's so boring. Does anyone want to fight with me? You can fly a broomstick. It's a pity that Yifeng's complaints are destined to get no response, because everyone else is busy reviewing, but Yifeng is not an ordinary person after all, and he completely adjusted back in just 2 days. If there was no one to play with him, he would just play by himself. Moreover, he had only studied half a dozen of the magic books, and he was still a little far away from actually entering the experimental stage, so he carefully revised the magic books while recalling them. Voldemort's next Horcrux is there. That's right, Yifeng is eyeing Voldemort again, and the reason why he is eyeing Voldemort again is not because he has a grudge against Voldemort, but because only Voldemort is suitable for this matter. As we all know, Voldemort possesses several Horcruxes, and as long as all of these Horcruxes are not destroyed, he will not truly die. In other words, theoretically, as long as all of Voldemort's Horcruxes are not destroyed, then Voldemort will not die. Real death. It's a pity that these Horcruxes cannot be regenerated, otherwise it would be even better. Thinking of this, Yifeng felt sorry that Voldemort's Horcrux could not be regenerated, because he needed Voldemort to help him experiment to see if the grimoire he had researched could really be practiced. And if he had the talent to choose Voldemort, besides having several lives, it was more important. One thing is that he is talented enough. There is no doubt that Voldemort is definitely a genius, otherwise he would not have learned so much dark magic, let alone become the Dark Lord. A magic genius, with a few lives that are not afraid of twists and turns, and with enough ambition, who is more suitable than Voldemort to be the first novice to practice the grimoire, lucky person. It's a pity that I haven't finished watching the Harry Potter movie series yet. In order to resurrect him, the previous diary required the sacrifice of a Hogwarts student, otherwise we can let him try. Forget it, why are you so entangled? I haven't finished creating the grimoire yet. Maybe when the grimoire is perfected, that guy will jump out on his own. With this thought, Yifeng regained his former vitality, but Dumbledore couldn't help but wailed when Yifeng regained his vitality, because the whole academy was quiet and no one violated the school rules. It had only been 2 days since he had caused trouble and needed him to solve it. The next day, Dumbledore, who had only been relaxing for 2 days, was having morning tea with Grindelwald. However, before he could finish the pot, he was interrupted by Snape, who hurriedly came to kill him. The reason why Snape came to his door was very simple: Malfoy was beaten. Yes, Malfoy was beaten. The second-year Slytherin leader, Malfoy, the pure-blood noble, Malfoy who first regarded Yifeng as his opponent, found that he couldn't beat him, then retreated and regarded Harry as his opponent. Fu was beaten, and the person who beat him was none other than Yifeng, who had returned to life. When Dumbledore arrived, he saw Yifeng looking at Malfoy with a caring look. Opposite him, Malfoy, who was lying on the ground covering his face, was looking at Yifeng in disbelief. Snape, who had found Dumbledore, immediately became angry when he saw Malfoy still lying on the ground. He shouted loudly, "Get up quickly! How long are you going to lie on the ground? Aren't you embarrassed enough?" Malfoy, teach, Professor Snape, just when you left, Yifeng, he took action again, and not only did he take action, he also used magic on us, and he also stole our gold galleons. Not only Snape but also Dumbledore were angry when they heard Malfoy's words, because although Yifeng also liked to get into trouble in the past, he would never bully other students, let alone steal their classmates' things, so Dumbledore was very angry when he heard this. "It's angry. Mr. Yi, this time, you have indeed passed." Although Dumbledore's words were not harsh, only those who are familiar with Dumbledore know that Dumbledore was really angry like this. However, facing the really angry Dumbledore, Yifeng made a disdainful sound and said, "Why don't you ask me why I beat him, why I used magic, and why I shot him in the end?" Quote, "Yes, why?" They also came to their senses after hearing Yifeng's words. Yifeng has always been very measured, so logically speaking, he would not do such an out-of-line thing, but just now they saw Malfoy's miserable look coupled with his complaints made him a little excited for a moment. Now they were brought back by Yifeng's words, so Snape and Dumbledore calmed down and turned to look at Malfoy. Seeing Snape and Dumbledore staring closely at him, Malfoy suddenly became extremely nervous and could not even speak. Yifeng laughed and said, "Since you are embarrassed to say it, let me tell you, all right. In fact, the cause of this incident is very simple, just because the Malfoy family owed money and refused to pay it back." Wow, Yifeng's words stirred up 1,000 waves, including among the people who had gathered around to eat melon, because even they didn't know the real cause and effect. They only saw Yifeng asking Malfoy to come out, and finally Malfoy's picture, the look of his nostrils turned up in the sky irritated Yifeng, and in the blink of an eye they found Malfoy lying on the ground. So when Yifeng said that the Malfoy family owed money and would not pay it back, they were instantly excited because this was a big deal. As we all know, the Malfoy family has quite a status in the wizarding world, because they are not only an ancient pure-blood family and related to many other pure-blood families, but they are also quite wealthy, equivalent to a famous family in the wizarding world. However, just today they actually heard that this family that they had always looked up to actually owed money and refused to repay it. This was a bit beyond their understanding. After all, with the financial resources of the Malfoy family, it is impossible and should not be able to owe others. The money should not be left unpaid. Not to mention ordinary students, even Snape and Dumbledore were surprised when they heard this, so they all looked at Malfoy. "Can you tell me what's going on?" Although Dumbledore's words were spoken very calmly, they had an undeniable aura, which made Malfoy, who was very reluctant to mention what had just happened, have no choice but to speak. "Yes, that's it. I just woke up today and he blocked the door of the Slytherin lounge and asked me to pay back the money. But I didn't lend him any money at all, so naturally I will not pay him back, let alone admit that I owe him money." Then what? Anyone who is not a fool knows that the next step is the important point, so when Malfoy hesitated, Dumbledore directly urged him to speak faster. Even a proud and confident Malfoy did not dare to refuse Dumbledore's urging, so he gritted his teeth and said loudly, "Then he took out the IOU written by my father." But how can someone buy 10,000 gold galleons for a mandrake plant? So I don't recognize the legality of this IOU, and I refuse to pay back the money. Oh, is it just like this? Dumbledore looked at Malfoy with questioning eyes, because according to his understanding of Yifeng, if it was just like this, Yifeng would never hit anyone, because he would go directly to Malfoy's father. Lucius wanted money, so Dumbledore was sure there must be something else going on. It can only be said that Dumbledore's majesty accumulated over the years is not overshadowed. Facing Dumbledore's gaze, Malfoy lowered his head guiltily, but even if he lowered his head and did not look at Dumbledore, he still could not hold on for a few seconds. When I refused, my tone was a little bit unpleasant, and my choice of words was a bit inappropriate. Yi Feng. Hollow down pointing triangle, oh no. Yi Feng looked disdainful when he saw Malfoy being looked at by Dumbledore, because if it were him, instead of bowing his head, he would look at Dumbledore with a high head and tell him firmly, no wrong, that's just the way it is. At this point, it can be said that the truth is basically revealed. Malfoy was responsible for this incident, but beating someone is wrong after all. So after listening to Malfoy's words, Dumbledore decided to deduct points from both Gryffindor and Slytherin. And Yi Feng had to be put into solitary confinement because he hit someone. However, just when Dumbledore announced this decision, Yi Feng had not yet opened his mouth, but someone couldn't help it. The twin stars of our entertainment world, the kings of trouble in Hogwarts after Yi Feng, the Weasley twins, took action. Professor Dumbledore, we believe that this matter is entirely Malfoy's responsibility. Yi Feng is just helping Malfoy achieve his wish. Therefore, Headmaster, you should not deduct points from Gryffindor, let alone punish Yi Feng. He should be rewarded. Dumbledore. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. After hearing the words of the Weasley twins, Dumbledore's mind was filled with questions, but what made him even more confused was that the people watching nearby who had arrived earlier nodded. This made Dumbledore instantly interested, so he motioned for the two of them to continue. Do you, the Weasley family, have to be against our Malfoy family? Malfoy couldn't help it when he saw this, because if the Weasley twins really told what happened exactly, the image of the Malfoy family in front of Dumbledore would be completely ruined. However, these are the Weasley twins. Before Yi Feng arrived, they were the ones who violated the school rules the most at Hogwarts. They were not afraid of anything, and they treated night outings like eating and drinking. So they would be afraid. Just kidding, not only were they not afraid of Malfoy's threat, but they became even more excited. They jumped directly in front of Dumbledore and started acting directly. George. Hollow down pointing triangle, dong dong yin, open the door, Slytherins, stop sleeping in, come out and open the door for me personally. Fred. Who is it? You didn't sleep so early in the morning. George. Debt collector, open the door for me quickly, or I will ask the house elf to serve you Slytherin breakfast 10 minutes tonight. Fred. The door to the Slytherin common room opened less than a minute after Yi Feng said this, and Malfoy came out soon after. Fred as Malfoy, it turns out to be a mudblood from Gryffindor. What are you doing in Slytherin if you don't accompany your mudblood friends so early in the morning? George played as Yi Feng. Oh, our noble thoroughbred stallion or foe is finally willing to get up. When speaking of this, George imitated Yi Feng's teasing and sarcastic tone. He deliberately lengthened his voice and directly used the word horse to form the name Malfoy. PFF'd. Dumbledore, who was watching from the side, wanted to remain serious. Although the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, he still held it back. However, Grindelwald, who was following him, had no such worries, so he couldn't help laughing, which made the person next to him laugh. Snape's mouth couldn't help but twitch wildly. However, Greenwald's laughter did not interrupt the Weasley twins. They just glanced curiously at the man who had been following Principal Dumbledore and continued. Fred. Humph. That's all the lowly mudblood has. Tell me, what's the point of waking us up so early in the morning? If there's nothing important, we're going to have morning tea. Oh, do you know what morning tea is? It is an activity spread among the nobles. Mudbloods like you will not understand it. George. Oh, drinking some morning tea will make you a noble. This noble is really worthless. No wonder he owes money and refuses to pay it back. Fred. What do you mean? When did I not pay back the money I owed? No, when did our Malfoy family owe money to others? Fred was stunned for a moment, then pretended to be stunned and continued. Said. Oh, I understand. Are you planning to blackmail me because our family has money? Then you have made the wrong calculation. Of course, if you are really short of money, I can also provide you with some gold galleons. Of course, if you want you to be my servant and bring me tea and water to wash clothes, I can give it to you a month 10 gold galleons. George. Idiot. Dumbledore. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. George said, national curse, in his half-baked Chinese, which immediately confused Dumbledore. Others were also confused, because although they guessed that it was not a good word, they who had not studied Chinese did not know that. What exactly does that mean? Chinese is a language full of charm, but it is also one of the most difficult languages in the world to learn. Yi Feng is very lucky that his native language is Chinese, otherwise he would have to learn it to death. Dumbledore once had the idea of learning Chinese, but when Yi Feng showed him how many ways to express something by picking it up, Dumbledore completely killed the idea. Who knows why just picking up an object can be expressed in so many words? And this is just picking up one thing, what about the others? Is this also true? Dumbledore has given up the idea of learning Chinese. How many students at Hogwarts can understand it? So they didn't know what the word meant at all, so Yi Feng explained the meaning of the word to them in a gentlemanly manner. The meaning of this word is very simple. It means to describe a person who is stupid. Of course, it also contains strong personal feelings. In short, it has a strong sense of contempt. Oh, got it, George, please continue. As soon as Yi Feng explained this, others understood instantly. As for Malfoy, when he thought of Yi Feng's eyes at that time, his face turned red and angry. As for the Weasley twins, with Dumbledore's permission, they started acting again with great interest. George played as Yi Feng, idiot. PFF'd. Behind Dumbledore, Grindelwald laughed again, because this time George looked at Malfoy and shouted, which directly made Malfoy's face, which was red with anger, darken. Fred as Malfoy HMPH, a mudblood as a mudblood, and he doesn't even know how to curse. George. Fred. What? Not convinced. You don't want to hit me, do you? Come on. Just hit me like this. George. Snapped. Fred. Ah. You. You really dare to hit me? I must tell Professor Snape and let him deduct 100 Gryffindor points from you and expel you. PFF'd. Ha 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 ha. Seeing the vivid interpretation of the Weasley twins, Grindelwald couldn't hold back his laughter this time. Dumbledore turned back and gave him a sideways glance, asking him to calm down a little. After all, he was still a teacher. Let's not talk about Dumbledore and Grindelwald's flirting. Yi Feng was also dumbfounded, because George's slap was really a slap, but the force was slightly smaller than what he did at the time, but the two people's cooperation was indeed tacit. As soon as George hit Fred, he fell to the ground, as if he was really knocked to the ground. You are so talented, it would be unreasonable for the Oscars not to award you both a statuette. Of course, neither Greenwald's laughter nor Yi Feng's dumbfounded expression interrupted the dedicated Weasley twins, and they continued to perform. George took out a piece of paper and unfolded it to Fred. Did you see it? This is an IOU written by your father himself, so Mr. Malfoy, when are you going to pay back these 10,000 galleons? Fred stood up with a cry. Why don't you go and grab it? Moreover, the IOU clearly states that my father only owes 9,000 gold galleons. Why do you want me to pay back 10,000 gold galleons? George. They are indeed the biological father and son. Your father also asked me about this question. I already answered him at that time. Now I will answer it for you out of mercy. How can robbing make money as quickly as this? It is also safe, legal and compliant. Quote. As for why it turned into 10,000 gold galleons. Of course this is interest. Have you ever seen someone lend money to a stranger without interest? Okay, the questions have been answered. Now tell me your answer. Draco Malfoy, you still don't want to pay back the money? Or do you want to be a deadbeat like your father and don't pay back the money? Of course, if you don't have that much money for the time being, you can also write to your father to remind him. It's only 10,000 gold galleons. You Malfoy family won't be able to pay it back, right? Fred. You. HMPH. How to provoke generals. It's useless. Don't tell me that I don't have 10,000 gold galleons. Even if I have it, I won't pay it back to you. If you have the ability, just go to our house and find my father to pay it back. Oh, by the way, if I didn't see if it's wrong, your IOU didn't have a clear repayment date, right? And it didn't specify how much interest it would be. That is to say, we can definitely postpone the repayment. As for the interest, as long as there is no explicit interest written on it, the Ministry of Magic stipulates that there is no interest by default. Of course, although we will not pay the interest, we will not pay the interest. We will still pay it back, but the date for repayment depends on our mood. If I'm in a good mood, then maybe I can write to my father tomorrow and ask him to exchange the money for you. If I'm in a bad mood, then maybe I'll forget about it for a while. How long do you have to wait then? It's different, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 2 years, or even in 100 years. When he said this, Fred's face was filled with the look of a villain, that expression, that charming look. Apart from his different appearance, everything else was exactly the same as Malfoy's. Fred, how about it? How about asking me? If you ask me, maybe I will write a letter to my father for you as soon as I am in a good mood. Oh, by the way, I still have 10 gold galleons here. These 10 gold galleons should be enough for mudbloods like you to use them for several months, right? When Fred said this, he took something out of his pocket. However, although their family was not as strapped for money now, they were already used to being thrifty, so they still couldn't get 10 gold galleons out of their pocket. Yi Feng, who had been overjoyed for a long time, immediately took out a handful of gold galleons and put it into Fred's hand. This made Fred and George's eyes light up instantly. If Yi Feng hadn't stopped them, they would have died. Everyone has to kowtow to Yi Feng to thank him. Seeing this, Dumbledore and Snape felt that it was enough. As for what happened next, you would know by looking at Malfoy's appearance. Although Yi Feng is not the kind of person who likes to bully classmates, he definitely couldn't bear being insulted like this. But the fact is exactly the opposite. It was not Yi Feng who took the initiative but Malfoy, because after Malfoy said those words, Yi Feng replied to him lightly. The petrifying potion you drank before was specially made. Malfoy. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. I added a little bit of ingredients when cooking, a little bit of Chinese medicinal material called luminous sand. Don't search randomly when taking Chinese medicine, just boil it and drink it, it's for your own good. No hollow down pointing triangle. People who don't understand Yi Mingxia may think it's nothing, but Malfoy has studied potions, so he knows very well what this thing is, which makes him retching directly, and then he takes out his wand. In the magical world, when you take out your wand on someone, it basically means that you are going to attack, so when Yi Feng saw Malfoy taking out his wand, he shot him an Expelliarmus without saying a word, and then after another sound, Malfoy, who had been knocked up, fell to the ground. After understanding the whole thing, not to mention Snape, even Dumbledore was speechless. In the end, he just warned Yi Feng and exposed the matter. As for paying back the money, that was a personal grudge. He will handle it, but according to Yi Feng's temperament, even Snape can only let Malfoy wish for his own happiness. Yi Feng is not a fussy person. On the contrary, he is actually quite generous. Many times he is willing to share his things with people around him, such as the watermelons he grows himself, the talismans he makes, and the various delicacies he cooks. However, sometimes he can be very stingy. For example, he is relatively stingy when it comes to the gold galleons that the Malfoy family owes him. Even 10,000 gold galleons is nothing to him now. What? He can take it out at any time. Then a strange phenomenon occurred in Hogwarts. Almost every day during the break after lunch, no one is in a hurry to leave but stays in the restaurant, because soon a good show will take place, and the protagonist of this show is undoubtedly Yi Feng and Malfoy. Generally speaking, Hogwarts does not allow students to use magic in private, let alone the use of magic to compete, because if there is no teacher present, this is actually a very dangerous thing. If you are not careful, someone will come up to you. It may cause casualties. But Malfoy and Yi Feng are not ordinary students. Needless to say, Yi Feng, going to Dumbledore's principal's office was like going home. Moreover, Yi Feng has gotten into countless troubles, but I have never seen him really punished. In addition, this guy has created a lot of things that are beneficial to the students, and has greatly improved their food. So even if his male classmates are envious of his popularity with women, they still hate him, which leads to his popularity being ridiculously good. Therefore, even if Yi Feng really did something wrong, the students at Hogwarts would basically turn a blind eye, and even the teachers would do this sometimes. As for Malfoy, no matter whether he is a bullied character in the show or now, he still has quite a status in the entire Hogwarts. Therefore, when they applied for a duel after dinner, basically no teacher will refuse, even Snape and Dumbledore. The reason why they didn't refuse was actually very simple. According to Dumbledore and the others' understanding of Yi Feng's magic level, there is basically no problem in letting him graduate directly. Therefore, in ordinary competitions, there will basically be no problem of mistakes and excessive shots, and Malfoy. It's not that they look down on Malfoy. Malfoy's magic talent is actually quite good. He studies seriously and has mastered a lot of magic. If you really compare it, he is among the best among the entire 3rd graders, and even some 4th graders. A weaker student might not be able to beat him. But the opponent he chose was a bit too perverted. Oh, it can't be said that he chose it, because in fact, Yi Feng started every fight, and the method was very simple, just one sentence. As the only heir of the Malfoy family, don't you even have the courage to compete with a mudblood like me? As soon as these words came out, Malfoy had to grit his teeth even if he had suffered a loss, because if he didn't agree to Yi Feng, it would prove that he was really timid and that the Malfoy family did not have the courage to accept the challenge. If this is implemented, the reputation and status of the Malfoy family among pure-blood families will plummet. Of course, there is a more important point. If he dares not to agree, then his father will probably come and take him home the next day, so that he can experience what father's love is and what family rules are. Then, Expelliarmus, armor protection. You actually know how to set up a shield today instead of trying to attack me. It's a bit of an improvement, but unfortunately it's still a bit behind. Collapse. The flames are blazing. Laoyasa. The sound fell to the ground. Collapse. Dong. Tisk, are you still using your armor to protect yourself? Don't you even see me there? The enemy is in front of you and you still don't know how to hide, Mana. Yi Feng, who knocked out Malfoy with one punch, looked at the people who were lying around. Malfoy, who fell to the ground and rolled his eyes, shook his head. The students watching the show nearby, including the seniors, couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard Yi Feng's words. Do you think everyone is as perverted as you? You are only in the 2nd year and you can use a variety of different magics non-stop. Malfoy can react and use his armor to block the two in front of him. This is already very powerful. I wouldn't change it. It can definitely be done. Zhang Chu, who was worried about something happening to Yi Feng and had been standing at the front to guard him, directly expressed the thoughts of others, including Malfoy who was unconscious on the ground, because Yi Feng cast the spell too fast, and at the most outrageous moments, he can use combos without thinking. Through Yi Feng's use of magic in the past 2 days, they also discovered that when Yi Feng uses magic, he does not think about it like they do, but uses the one that is suitable and can be used as quickly as possible. Many of the magic he uses is based on the experience of traditional wizards. At first glance it seems like he is acting randomly, but afterwards you find out that he actually has some rules. For example, this fight with Malfoy. The first 2 are the ones that traditional wizards will choose, but the third one, Leviosa, is generally not used by wizards, because even if you levitate the opponent, as long as the opponent is not panicked, they can still use magic to counterattack, so they usually take advantage of the victory and continue to use offensive magic. But Yi Feng just used it, and he then used a non-offensive magic sound to land on the ground, directly throwing Malfoy, who was levitated by his magic, to the ground, and directly used this fall to break Malfoy's arm. Armor protection. Of course, they all guessed that the last, fainting, was Yi Feng's intention, because that fall had already knocked Malfoy to pieces, and he had already won without having to make up for it. But Yi Feng still made up for it. However, although this is the guess in most people's minds, they dare not say it casually, because Yi Feng is very generous and basically does not hold grudges, but this does not mean that he will not punish you. Don't forget that he is a troublemaker who gives Dumbledore more headaches than the Weasley twins. Although most of his pranks are not personal, it does not mean that he will not be personal. After all, it is still circulating in Hogwarts. There are various versions of rumors about Christmas supernatural events. Of course, this was just one day, because Yi Feng found Malfoy as usual the next day, and when the competition started, the expressions of Dumbledore and Snape became much more serious. It was still Expelliarmus, and the rest was like yesterday, but when Yi Feng cast Viasa, Malfoy actually moved quickly to dodge before the magic came, which made Yi Feng look sideways. Not bad, you actually evaded my Loisa, and the speed of casting armor protection is 0.5 seconds faster than yesterday. The progress is quite rapid. But you don't think you are the only one who has improved, do you? While talking, Yi Feng casually dodged Malfoy's counterattack magic, which made the little pride that had just appeared on Malfoy's face instantly dissipate, and then Yi Feng made Malfoy see what despair is. Accept, fire, stone, unify, As those words came out one after another, Yi Feng's raised wand almost turned into a laser wand, and all kinds of magic burst out almost without stopping, drowning him. This is a simple spell cast. Yi Feng's move really shocked Dumbledore and the others, but Yi Feng had no such consciousness at all. After he blew Malfoy away, he just glanced at him lightly, said a few words and left directly. As long as you Malfoys don't pay back the money for one day, I will fight with you for a day until you or your father pay back the money. Because of these words and Yi Feng's subsequent actions of not breaking his promise, a saying spread in Hogwarts: eat, sleep, and beat Malfoy. Eat, sleep, and fight Malfoy. This simple sentence contained much of Malfoy's heartache and blood and sweat. However, when the semester ended, Malfoy was stunned because he found that his magic level was no less than that of most fourth-year students. As for some magic such as armor protection, he has even performed it silently without knowing it, and it has even become an instinct. As long as the wand lifts the armor protection, the release will be completed naturally. Because of this discovery, Malfoy, who originally planned to ask his father to return the money to Yi Feng as soon as he returned home, immediately hesitated, because although he suffered a lot from competing with Yi Feng, he also received a lot of ridicule and rolling eyes, but the harvest is real. It seems, this is not bad. Yi Feng didn't know what Malfoy was thinking. He was packing his things at the moment. After all, the school year had come to an end, and there was no such thing as staying in school at the end of the school year. After all, the holiday was quite long. However, Yi Feng had already made up his mind. After returning from the holiday, he would go directly to Malfoy's house to collect debts from his father. Although he had a great time playing against Malfoy these days, there was no point in being abusing him all the time. Although Malfoy was also improving rapidly, that progress was meaningless to Yi Feng, so it was him who he beat Malfoy a lot, but in fact he was also working as a sparring partner for Malfoy. Letting a person whose magical attainments have reached the level of a professor or even surpassed that of an ordinary professor, who has reached the level of Dumbledore, as a sparring partner every day is not something that can be hired for 10,000 gold galleons, so Malfoy actually made a lot of money. Yi Feng didn't want Malfoy to take advantage of him, so after he tortured Yi Feng, he was ready to talk to Malfoy's father. Of course, seeking to collect debts is just a superficial reason. Yi Feng's real purpose of going to Malfoy's house is actually to see if they have Voldemort's items or Voldemort's other Horcruxes. After all, his grimoire there is only the last bit left, it's time to find a suitable person to try. Unfortunately, Yi Feng didn't know where Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes were, so he could only wait slowly. Fortunately, he had enough time, and as long as he was still in Hogwarts, Voldemort would automatically come to his door. Yes, after all, Hogwarts has to sacrifice a Voldemort every school year. That's no joke. Parting is always sad. After the school year, Yi Feng and the others have to go home. Fortunately, they all know where the others' home is. It's very convenient if they really want to see each other. The only trouble is Harry, because he's still living at his uncle's house. Speaking of this, Yi Feng had to complain. Although Harry is only 13 years old and is not allowed to live alone according to the laws of the Ministry of Magic and the laws of the ordinary world, he can actually bypass this rule. After all, both Yi Feng and Ronald can help him buy a house and let him he moved out. Even if he wanted to, it was not impossible to move directly to Ronald's house, because Ronald's house had been expanded and could accommodate 3 or 5 more Harrys, not to mention one more. And Harry is not without money. On the contrary, he is still very rich, so if he feels sorry for himself, he can pay rent and food expenses to Ronald's family. In this way, not only will he have a good place to live, but he will also solve the problem of guardianship, this problem. Unfortunately, Harry felt that although his uncle's family was not very good to him, they were still his uncles after all, so after a school year, he felt that he could give it another try, and then decided to go back to his uncle's house. As for Yi Feng, his parents and Zhongchu's parents are still traveling around the world, so they are the only two at home this year. But fortunately, neither Yi Feng nor Zhongchu are useless people who don't know how to do anything, so it's okay just the two of them. Wizards who are not adults are not allowed to use magic in the Muggle world, but they have no regulations that do not allow the use of spells. Talismans have been added to this list before, but protective talismans are not included in this list, because it's something that protects itself. So when Yifeng brought out some ingredients brought back from the magic world, Zhongchu not only didn't find it strange, but also took the initiative to help with the various ingredients. However, when the food was ready and served to the table, the two of them felt a little unnatural. Although they had often been together at school before and had many opportunities to be alone, it was the first time that they were just sitting at the same table eating like this without anyone around them, because Hogwarts it is a large canteen, and everyone eats in the restaurant at the same time. But this cannot be blamed on Yifeng, because although Zhongchu is only 14 or 15 years old at the moment, because he keeps up with nutrition and exercises every day, he has become slim and tall. Although his figure has not really matured, he is still tall and slim, very eye-catching. As for Yifeng, although he is still a little green in appearance, he can be considered a handsome young man, and in terms of height, he is nearly a head taller than Zhongchu, who is 1 year older than him. In addition, he is suffering from pain all day long. Hermione, Luna and the others said it was a lie to say that she had never thought about it. Of course, the weird atmosphere didn't last long as Yifeng put a piece of fish meat with fish bones into Zhongchu's bowl with chopsticks, and Zhongchu looked at the piece of fish meat in his bowl. The corners of the fish bone's snow-white fish mouth are slightly raised. Zhongchu rarely eats fish. It can even be said that she has never eaten fish with bones in school. This does not mean that she does not like to eat fish. On the contrary, she actually likes to eat fish. However, she once had a fish bone stuck in her throat, so she did not like it. Too dare to eat fish with spines. She didn't tell anyone else about this, but Yifeng seemed to know that, and that was enough for her. Her brother didn't alienate her just because he made other friends. Knowing this, it was enough. I had a great time eating this meal, but when I went to bed at night, Yifeng was almost frightened by Zhongchu and jumped out of the roof. Because Zhongchu was actually afraid of the dark, so she walked into Yifeng holding her pillow and quilt as a matter of course. Room. Zhongchu slept particularly soundly that night, and Yifeng woke up unusually late the next day. He even stopped taking the purple energy he had insisted on taking every day for more than 10 years. When Zhongchu asked him why he was wearing a pair of pandas, Yifeng couldn't help but roll his eyes. Yifeng never expected that Zhongchu would not be honest at all when he saw such a quiet girl sleeping at night, so that he really didn't sleep all night last night, and he didn't sleep for a while until dawn. Oh, what a sin. After Zhongchu went to wash up, Yifeng sighed, and then he decided that he could not be the only one in pain, so after breakfast, when Zhongchu went to catch up with her muggle friends whom she had not seen for a long time, Yifeng hugged himself and created the watermelon-sized grenade, made its way to Malfoy's house. Nanaidi, if you don't pay back the money today, I will detonate this thing and die with you. I will go home, and you will be clean. The Malfoy family is relatively well known in the wizarding world, so it is not difficult to find their home there. In addition, there is such a thing as the Flow fan network in the wizarding world, so after only half an hour, Yifeng then he knocked on the door of Malfoy's house. Dong dong dong. Within a minute of the knock on the door, Lucius came out with his son Malfoy. Although the Malfoy family is quite a stinker, in order to maintain their own face, they cannot close the door and thank guests when there are classes. As for deliberately making things difficult for Yifeng and leaving him outside the door, there is no such thing. After all, Yifeng is not a good person. Lucius also did Yifeng's homework after suffering a loss, so Lucius knew very well that Yifeng's status in Dumbledore's heart was actually very high. Coupled with Yifeng's many contributions to the school, Lucius had to re-evaluate Yifeng's importance, especially after knowing that Yifeng was the one who made heavy-duty brooms and sold out talismans everywhere. The person behind the scenes even regretted leaving such a bad impression on Yifeng. As for why he still hasn't paid back the money even though he knew Yifeng had beaten Malfoy so many times in school, it was naturally because he needed Malfoy's hand to calm Yifeng's anger. After learning that Yifeng was the person who made the heavy-duty broomstick and talisman, Lucius understood that in fact, Yifeng was not short of money at all. It was even possible that Yifeng's wealth alone was greater than that of the entire Malfoy family. There are even more, because now even the stubborn old antiques in the entire magic world will have 3 or 4 talismans in their hands. The per capita holding rate of this talisman has far exceeded that of the magic wand. It is absolutely impossible for Yi Feng to be short of money. In other words, the reason why Yi Feng's mandrake is sold so expensively is not talking about his little money, but wanting to deliberately mess with him or his son Malfoy. As a veteran, how could Lucius not know this? So he deliberately didn't pay back the money just to give Yi Feng a reason to beat his son to vent his anger. What's more, his son also gained a lot of benefits in the process, so he was even less anxious to pay back the money. There is actually nothing wrong with Lucius's guess and approach, but unfortunately his vision is still a little narrow. With Yi Feng's current strength, it is no longer fun for him to beat Malfoy. In addition, he has already become a human being. As luck would have it, Yi Feng didn't sleep well last night, so he came directly to their door and didn't plan to play with them. Therefore, when Lucius saw Yi Feng holding a round, big iron ball, with a skull and 2 crossed bones on it knocking on the door of their house, Lucius quickly kicked it. He opened the door to his son's room and pulled him to the door as quickly as possible. He bought a lot of Yi Feng's talismans, especially some high-end talismans. He basically bought one of every type and tried many, so he knew the power of those talismans very well, and it was precisely because he knew Lucius did not dare to hesitate at all about the power of these things. Who knows what else someone who can make something like a talisman can make? What's more, there was an icon clearly warning of danger, so Lucius didn't dare to neglect it. You must know that the talisman that can blow up a house does not have any danger warnings or patterns written on it, but this thing actually has it, and it was carried by Yi Feng himself, so Lucius felt that it's better to be cowardly, otherwise he is afraid that tomorrow the Daily Prophet will publish the news that their villa has been razed to the ground. So, when the door opened, under Yi Feng's shocked eyes, Malfoy gave him a 90-degree bow, and then apologized to him loudly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have scolded you with insulting words before. Please forgive me for being rude, classmate Yi Feng. If classmate Yi Feng feels uncomfortable, you can beat me up again. I promise not to resist this time, let alone fight back." Yi Feng. Yi Feng was immediately shocked when he saw Malfoy like this, but Yi Feng could tell from Malfoy's demeanor and expression. Although this guy apologized loudly, his etiquette was also in place and he spoke very well. It sounds nice, but neither the expression on the face nor the eyes are actually very reluctant. In other words, this is actually not his own idea or wish at all, but what his father Lucius forced him to do. But Malfoy was like this, whether it was voluntary or forced. He accepted this apology, although he felt that Malfoy's scolding him had actually been settled. "Come in, I didn't expect that classmate Yi Feng would come to the humble abode at this time. It really makes our Malfoy family shine." Judging from these polite words, Lucius has really done his homework, but Yi Feng, who was walking in while listening to Lucius's words, nodded and said, "Your house is indeed a bit shabby. It shouldn't have been renovated for decades, right? It does have the smell of a humble house." "Lucius, Malfoy and son. What should I do? I really want to beat him." In fact, the Malfoys really wrongly blamed Yi Feng, because he was not hurting the Malfoys but really thought so, because their house was indeed very old and many things were badly worn. Of course, it's also because Yi Feng is too straightforward. He should be more tactful and say that their house has a sense of age and has a strong historical charm and atmosphere of life. But it's better to be more straightforward, because Yi Feng was so straightforward, Lucius's original intention of showing off was gone, and he took Yi Feng directly to their study room full of historical charm, which saved Yi Feng's time. A lot of wind time. I don't know if classmate Yi Feng is here today. What advice can our Malfoy family give? In fact, Lucius probably guessed Yi Feng's purpose, but he didn't really want to pay back all the money right now, so he just pretended not to understand. As the saying goes, they are all 1,000-year-old foxes, so playing Laojai is a bit unethical, so Yi Feng spoke directly without being polite at all. "I'm here to collect debt. Did you see this thing? This is called a friendly magic grenade. Its yield is equivalent to 10 kilograms of TNT. Oh, you may not understand the equivalent of TNT. Let me tell you, if this magic grenade explodes, your entire Malfoy manor will be directly razed to the ground. There will be no intact walls. So, if you don't want your Malfoy family to appear in tomorrow's Daily Prophet, then pay back the money quickly." Lucius Malfoy As soon as Yi Feng said these words, the expressions of Malfoy and his son immediately changed. Their bodies, which were originally slightly swaying because they were sitting more relaxed, instantly became upright and even leaned back a little. They instinctively wanted to stay away from Yi Feng. Just one sentence frightened the famous Lucius family in the magic world to this point. It must be said that Yi Feng's prestige was indeed far-reaching, but just a moment later Lucius's eyes shone brightly. If he heard correctly, Yi Feng just said that the thing he was holding in his hand was powerful enough to blow up the entire Malfoy Manor, and the area of their Malfoy Manor was larger than a standard football in the Muggle world. The market is not big or small. In other words, if this thing can be produced or if the method of making this thing can be obtained, it is not impossible that the Malfoys can even directly recreate the glory of the Voldemort era, and even go one step further to directly rule the entire magical world. Thinking of this, Lucius looked at Yi Feng as if he were looking at a peerless treasure, and Yi Feng was immediately stunned by Lucius's burning gaze, so he directly raised the magic grenade in his hand, and fastened his fingers to the pull ring. Lucius, calm down. Yi Feng, calm down. I'll go over and get the money for you. It's only 10,000 gold galleons. Our Malfoy family can still afford it. And to show our sincerity, I am willing to spend another 10,000 gold galleons to buy the magic grenade in your hand. Yi Feng, katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. 10,000 gold galleons. This is the only finished product that I spent a lot of energy and time to create. Do you know how much risk I took and how many school rules I violated in order to create it? 10,000 is not enough, I have to add more money. Sigma A. Malfoy and his father Lucius were immediately stunned when they heard Yi Feng's words. They had never heard such a refreshing and refined reason for adding money, but Lucius was indeed coveted for the magic grenade in Yi Feng's hand. So he only hesitated for a moment before agreeing to Yi Feng's conditions and paying an additional 5,000 gold galleons to win it. However, unlike his son Malfoy, Lucius did not feel that it was expensive at all but felt that it was well worth the money. When Yi Feng put the magic grenade on the table and began to explain its use, power and functions, their father and son the two suddenly looked at each other and felt that this business was a huge profit. Let me tell you, this magic grenade is the latest type of magic grenade I made in the last few days of the final semester. It has innovatively added the unprecedented function of identifying friend or foe. Lucius, Malfoy, circle.operator O. I don't understand it, but I think it's awesome when I hear it. Yi Feng, tisk, it's troublesome to talk to people like you who have never experienced compulsory education. Let me tell you this, as long as you pull the opponent into the friendly unit, even if it explodes while holding that thing, you won't be hurt at all. Do the friendly units know that? Lucius, Malfoy, katakana middle dot O katakana middle dot. Yi Feng, ideographic period. O_O. Oh, forget it, let me explain it to you. To put it simply, friendly units are your own people, your teammates, and partners who fight with you. As long as you pull the people who don't want to be harmed by it into your own unit before using this magic grenade, after it explodes, it will automatically identify ourselves and the enemy, and will only blow up the enemy without hurting teammates, do you understand? Of course, if you think it's still not safe enough, this thing also has a timing function. In order to avoid being knocked away or even hit back by the opponent's magic when it is thrown, the magic grenade can also automatically detect magic strikes and automatically dodge after activation. Eventually it lands exactly where you want it and explodes. How's it going? After hearing these functions, do you think this magic grenade is worth the money? Lucius, Malfoy, yeah. The Malfoy father and son, who had been completely fascinated by the functions of the magic grenade described by Yi Feng, could only see the round, shiny magic grenade. When they heard Yi Feng's words, they nodded wildly without even raising their eyes. This made Yi Feng very satisfied. As expected, he is a well-known rich man in the magic world. Not only does he have enough money, he is also stupid enough, and he is easy to deceive. A magic grenade costing 10 gold galleons and 10,005 galleons was sold to them, and they actually thought it was material. It's great value for money, it's really hard to put money on someone's forehead quickly. Of course, this guy Yi Feng said it in his heart. After all, he had not yet gotten the 10,000 gold galleons that Lucius owed him or the 10,000 gold galleons from selling the magic grenades. Therefore, after letting the two of them watch for 3 or 4 seconds, he directly took the magic grenade back and said in a serious voice, "In China, we have the opportunity to pay with one hand and deliver with the other, so." When Yifeng said this, he stretched out his other hand without the grenade and rubbed his fingers. Lucius immediately understood this action when he saw it. He nodded, clapped his hands and began to wait quietly. The wait was always long. They waited for a full minute before a short house elf dragged a leather glove box into the study room. Yifeng only took one look at the house elf's movements of dragging the suitcase and figured it out. Okay, that little suitcase contains at least 30,000 gold galleons. Sure enough, Yifeng's eyesight was quite accurate. As Lucius snapped his fingers, the suitcase on the ground flew to the table and opened automatically. When the suitcase was opened, Lucius said with a smile, "There are 30,000 here. Gold galleons, 25,000 gold galleons are to pay off your debt to buy this magic grenade, and the remaining 5,000 gold galleons represent the friendship of our Malfoy family." If someone else used 5,000 gold galleons to gain his friendship, Yifeng would definitely slap that 5,000 gold galleons in the other person's face without hesitation, but now he wants to use 5,000 gold galleons to gain his friendship. It's different if it's the Malfoy family. Lucius can be said to be a staunch Death Eater and a staunch pawn of Voldemort. As for the relationship between Voldemort and Yifeng, you can see it just by looking at the previous 2 semesters. Therefore, if you don't take these 5,000 gold galleons, you won't get it. If you take it, it will be in vain. Therefore, Yifeng was not polite at all and directly closed the box and put it into the space ring. Then he put the magic grenade in his hand on the table and pushed it in front of Lucius, saying, "Money and goods are too. Ching, but I will remember the friendship between your Malfoy family." After saying this, Yifeng put his hand on the table and wanted to get up and leave. Seeing this, Lucius quickly called out to Yifeng and said, "Mr. Yifeng, since we are friends now, why not stay for lunch? Go, I think there are many places where we can cooperate." Yifeng. Katakana middle dot he katakana middle dot. Although he was a little confused, Yifeng also wanted to see what medicine Lucius was selling in the gourd, so he agreed to Lucius's invitation. When Lucius's wife Narcissa came in with a girl who was about 14 years old, but already quite mature. Although her appearance was slightly inferior to Hermione and Zhongchu's, but her body was much hotter and more attractive, she asked her to Yifeng roughly guessed what was going on when he sat next to him and fired electricity at him frequently. "Are you planning to use a beauty trap on me? I don't know if it's because of my potential or because of my industry. But it's said that this girl from Malfoy's cousin is of pretty good quality. Let's flirt with her. Give it a try and see if you can come up with some information." Several people with their own thoughts finished this not-so-delicious lunch. Judging from the girl's performance, she was still very satisfied with Yifeng, otherwise she wouldn't have asked Malfoy frequently after Yifeng left. News related to Yifeng. The reason why Lucius admires Yifeng so much and even wants to make Yifeng his own is actually very simple. Whether it is the broomstick or the talisman in Yifeng's hand, it is an absolute huge profit, but Lucius feels that Yifeng has completely wasted his talent, because if he concentrates on studying these 2 things, then these 2 things will become more popular in the magic world. Going up a floor is not a problem at all. Of course, Yifeng's business ability is even more mediocre. Both the flying broomstick and the talisman are popular throughout the magic world, but he didn't seize the opportunity to start his own business. He still relied on others to sell, and spent most of his money in vain. I was actually exposed. Give it to others. If it were him, it would only take 1 month for him to create at least twice the value of these 2 things now, so he selected the girl from the Malfoy family who was about the same age as Yifeng and had the best appearance and figure. The purpose is to tie Yifeng to their big boat. Although the girls around Yifeng all have amazing looks, they are still too young now, and they don't know how to take the initiative at all, so they still have a good chance. After all, who can refuse a girl with an appearance that can hit 80? A girl with a score of 5 or above and a figure of 90 or even 95 points. And even if the marriage fails, it is enough to have a good relationship with Yifeng. Of course, if the marriage fails, maybe you can also consider letting the 2 establish a pure male-female sleeping relationship. In this way, even if the relationship is not close, there is still a great opportunity to cooperate with Yifeng. Lucius has investigated it. In addition to flying broomsticks and talismans, Yifeng also has many good things. As long as he can get one of these things, there will be no problem for the Malfoy family to become the top wealthy family in the magic world. Of course, what Lucius covets the most is the design and manufacturing method of the magic grenade, because as long as they have that, it is not impossible for the Malfoy family to dominate the magical world. For this reason, let alone a niece or something, it is not impossible for his son Malfoy to sacrifice himself. Yifeng also saw Lucius's ambition. Of course, he also saw that Lucius really wanted the manufacturing method of the magic grenade, but let alone Yifeng didn't have a design drawing for that thing, he just had one. Then if you give this thing to Lucius, they won't be able to make it. Although this thing is powerful, the most difficult thing for it is not this, but the magic circles that can identify ourselves and the enemy, automatically detect and avoid interception. If we eliminate these and just want a more powerful magic grenade, that one you need to refine some more violent magic potions, and then carve a suppression circle and that's it. Of course, even if Yifeng couldn't make it for them, he wouldn't give it to them, because once this thing spreads, who knows if some genius will research something, so Yifeng just sold the grenade to Lucius. As for whether he can study anything from that grenade, that is his business. I just hope you won't dismantle it randomly. I designed the magic array of that thing into a chain array. If one of the magic arrays is destroyed or triggered, a chain reaction will occur and explode quickly. Yifeng muttered something and quickly put it behind him and hummed a little tune and went home, because he had safety measures in place for that thing. Even if it was accidentally touched or disassembled and exploded, it would not hurt anyone, and at most it would only cause damage. Just some belongings. Yifeng stopped by the vegetable market on the way home with today's harvest, intending to buy some delicious food to make a big meal tonight. Little did he know that after he left, Lucius entered with the magic grenade, into the potions room. Yes, the Malfoy family has a separate potion room, but usually they don't need it. After all, they are still very rich. If you want potions, just buy them. Plus Malfoy his godfather is Snape, so they actually have no shortage of potions. However, they can use it but cannot live without it, so they not only have a potion room but also a separate greenhouse. However, most of the things grown in this greenhouse are not herbs but ornamental plants and fruits. Of course, none of this is important. What is important is that after bringing the magic grenade to the potion room, he began to use various tools to study the magic grenade. Not only did he take pictures of the magic grenade in all directions, but also all the textures and so on. I also drew it in detail. But that's not the most crazy thing. The most crazy thing is that not only did he draw it, but he also densely marked the depth, size, quantity, etc. of the lines next to it. The degree of seriousness and meticulousness, even if Yifeng saw it, he wouldn't be able to tell. Don't write a capital letter for him. After all these things were drawn, Lucius set up a magic photo camera to record his entire disassembly process. However, just as he started to take action, Lucius broke out in a cold sweat because he discovered that the magic grenade was as natural as a hole. More importantly, he saw dense magic from the small gaps in the connections, texture. Of course, this didn't really scare him. What really scared him and made him break out in cold sweat was that he just pried it a little bit, and the place in the dense magic circle that was pried by his small metal rod flashed. This scared him so much that he didn't dare to take action easily again. Gulu. This is such an ingenious skill. No wonder he can create two things, the heavy-duty flying broomstick and the talisman. It seems that I still don't pay enough attention to him. Perhaps, he will be a more dazzling person than the mysterious man, a person more worthy of investment. It's a pity that he is not a pure-blood wizard. Otherwise, I would have found a way to keep him today and let him cook with Nymphadora and truly become a member of our Malfoy family. With a sigh, Lucius picked up the magic grenade, recalled how Yifeng taught him how to use it, and pulled everyone in the manor into friendly units. Although he is reluctant to use this thing now, and judging from Yifeng's previous products, the quality is very guaranteed, but he just pried the thing, so he still marked everyone as friendly units first. By the way, is this thing really so powerful? Why don't I really believe it? Is that guy lying to me? How about, try it? This potion room has been specially reinforced with magic. If you use magic to defend it, there should be no problem. After all, even Yifeng himself has never used this thing, so the specific power should not be it's as big as he said it would be. And our Malfoy family's manor is still very big. As a wizard born in an ordinary Muggle family, he certainly can't imagine how big this manor is. I guess he may think that our Malfoy family's manor is just a little bigger than the average Muggle courtyard. Quote, in addition to business, who doesn't praise his own things? So the power of this thing should only blow up a house at most. The more I thought about Lucius, the more I realized that what I was thinking was the truth, so, dang. PFF. In Hogwarts, Dumbledore was sitting on the balcony leisurely drinking tea and enjoying the rare holiday tranquility. Dumbledore, who was reading the newspaper, directly sprayed the tea in his mouth into the face of Greenwald, who was opposite him. This made Greenwald look resentful for a moment. Sorry, I'll clean it up for you right now, but even if you read this news, I guess you won't be able to bear it. Dumbledore apologized and used a cleaning tool to help Grindelwald remove the tea from his face, and Grindelwald listened. Dumbledore was also full of curiosity about the contents of the newspaper, so. PFF. Dumbledore. Ideographic period. Ideographic period. This guy must have done it on purpose. Dumbledore, who also had tea sprayed on his face, was speechless. However, Greenwald didn't care at all and did not clean the tea on Dumbledore's face because he was really completely attracted by the news in the Daily Prophet. All your attention. Yesterday, the manor where the famous Malfoy family lives in the wizarding world suffered an unknown attack and was completely razed to the ground overnight. But the amazing thing is that no one in the castle was harmed, and even the owl they raised was fine. We had interviewed Mr. Lucius Malfoy before sending the report, but he refused to answer our questions and did not reveal to us what exactly happened yesterday. He just said that it was just an accident and they did not suffer any harm. Attack. The Malfoy family's castle was razed to the ground. It's really a big event, but as far as I know, the Malfoy family's castle covers a large area. The magic world can raze it to the ground in an instant without harming their family at all. For flat ground. There shouldn't be one, right? Wait, maybe there is someone who can do it. Yi Feng. Dumbledore and Grindelwald called out the man's name almost at the same time. At the same time, Yi Feng, who had just put breakfast on the table and was going back to the room to ask Zhongchu to get up for breakfast, couldn't help but yell, sneeze. Hacho. Wu, who is thinking of me? Yi Feng rubbed his nose after sneezing, and Yi Feng was not the only one who was also sneezing. Malfoy had been frozen all night at the old site of Malfoy Manor. The whole family was sneezing non-stop. Yi Feng, I must make you look good when you go back to school. You actually blew up the castle that our Malfoy family has inherited for hundreds of years, and let me blow the cold wind all night. I, Draco Malfoy, and you. Snapped. Before Malfoy could finish his words, he yelled at his father for being a big mouth. Of course, this big mouth didn't have any psychological impact on him, because the slap was on the back of his head. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm warning you, you must work hard to build a good relationship with Yi Feng in school from now on, and you must create opportunities for your cousin to get together. Even if Yi Feng doesn't like your cousin, you must create opportunities for her to get together. Your cousin will become his first woman, and the last time I want your cousin to be one of his women. Also, yesterday's events are not allowed to be disclosed to anyone, especially the magic grenade. You are absolutely not allowed to mention it to anyone. Do you understand? Malfoy. I_I. Lucius. *Van. No pa. Do you understand? Malfoy. Listen, I understand, but do you really want to do this? Moreover, will my aunt and cousin agree? This is not something you should be concerned about. I will explain it carefully to them and get them to agree. But the most urgent thing now is to find Yi Feng first. He must not let him leak the magic grenade. If someone already knows about it and it is inevitable to spread it, then no matter what method is used, this thing must be secured caught in the hands of our Malfoy family. Looking at the sword skills and ferocity on Lucius's face, a look of panic flashed in Malfoy's eyes, but Lucius didn't notice it because he was in a hurry to find Yi Feng, but even if he did, he probably wouldn't. They will care, because the reason why the Malfoys have been able to climb up to where they are now is not because of their pride and blood but because of their ruthlessness. When Lucius set foot on the road to Yi Feng's house, or Zhongchu's house, he took out all the sumptuous breakfast and put it on the table. Yi Feng, who was walking towards his seat opposite Zhang Chu, happened to glance at the owl. The Daily Prophet came, and this glance made him unable to look back and slowly opened his mouth. Malfoy and his son. Are they so reckless? Zhang Chu. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. Hearing Yi Feng's words, Zhang Chu, who took a cold mouthful of nutritious and delicious meat porridge and was about to put it into his mouth, stopped, tilted his head and looked at Yi Feng in confusion and asked, "What happened to the Malfoy family?" "I'm not sure about the specifics. I'd better bring it over and read it with you." As he spoke, Yi Feng picked up the stack of Daily Prophets and sat directly next to Zhang Chu and unfolded the newspaper. When Zhang Chu saw the top of the newspaper after reading the content, the little mouth soon opened wide. Is this all true? Isn't this a joke? Today isn't April Fool's Day, right? Looking at Zhang Chu's cute expression, Yi Feng smiled and shook his head, saying, "No, although I don't know what the specific situation is, the news in the Daily Prophet should be true." In fact, Yi Feng lied, because Yi Feng guessed what was going on the moment he saw this news, and I am afraid that the only one who can destroy the huge Malfoy family manor in an instant without harming anyone or even animals is the magic grenade he sold to Lucius. I didn't expect that what I said before actually came true. The Malfoy family was really destroyed by the bombing. It's really gratifying. Oh, by the way, should I write a letter of comfort to them now? After all, although I did not cause this incident, I sold the things, so it stands to reason that I should comfort them. Feng, does this matter have something to do with you? Just as Yi Feng's eyes flickered and he was thinking wildly, a close whisper sounded in his ear. Yi Feng, I don't have you, don't talk nonsense. Yi Feng, who was frightened by these sudden words, immediately denied it 3 times. After denying it, he realized that Zhang Chu had just whispered it to him, which made Yi Feng's face instantly change. It becomes red. Don't get me wrong, it's not because Zhang Chu is too close to him, but because of social embarrassment. Zhang Chu, underscore. Seeing Yi Feng's handsome face turning red, Zhang Chu glanced sideways at Yi Feng, showing an expression of, "I've seen through you." Upon seeing this, Yi Feng didn't hide it from Zhang Chu and said directly, "This is actually true. Don't blame me, although I did sell the magic grenade to them, but I have already told them the precautions, and the power has also been solemnly mentioned to them. And I guarantee that there is absolutely no problem with the magic grenade I made. As long as they don't want to take it apart, even if they hit the magic grenade as a ball, it will never explode." Zhang Chu still trusted Yi Feng's words, but when they finished breakfast and the doorbell rang, Yi Feng opened the door and Zhang Chu saw that the person who came in was Lucius. She was still a little panicked. What should I do? Are they here to catch Yi Feng? No, I have to block him first to give Yi Feng a chance to escape. Yi Feng didn't know that Zhang Chu behind him was already thinking about his future affairs. However, Yi Feng was quite surprised to see Lucius, but it was absolutely impossible to ask him to compensate or refund money. Possibly, if something goes into his pocket, there is absolutely no reason for him to take it back. Lucius's arrival shocked Zhang Chu. After letting Lucius in, Yi Feng also noticed the nervousness on Zhang Chu's pretty face, so he walked over and grabbed Zhang Chu's white novel and comforted him in a low voice, "It's okay. Don't be nervous, he's not here to cause trouble, and even if he is, don't be afraid, he can't beat me." Zhang Chu. Katakana middle dot he katakana middle dot. How long have you been joking? You quickly find an excuse to leave and run out of the back window. I will help you hold off Malfoy's father to buy you time. Hearing Yi Feng's words, Zhang Chu showed a look of confusion at first, but then he eagerly grabbed Yi Feng's hand and tried to pull him back. That anxious expression made Yi Feng both touched and funny. "Okay, don't be nervous. We have been together for 2 years. Don't you know me well enough? Do you think I have done things that I am not sure about? And you just look down on my strength. In fact, I am very strong. It seems that the magic world combined may not be enough for me to fight." After hearing what Yi Feng said, Zhang Chu thought about it carefully and it seemed that it was right, because although Yi Feng often did some shocking things, when he was serious, he never did anything he was not sure about, and it was playful does not count. Therefore, thinking of this, Zhang Chu reluctantly calmed down, and Lucius looked at the hands held by Yi Feng and Zhang Chu and suddenly felt a powerful crisis. No, I'll urge Nymphadora to come over and take action as soon as I get back. It's best if I can cook the rice directly. If it's too late, I might not be able to take action. Seeing Yi Feng and Zhang Chu holding hands, Lucius felt that he could not delay it any longer, otherwise his plan to pull Yi Feng onto their Malfoy ship would probably be aborted. Because although Zhang Chu's figure is not that hot, she is still quite slim and attractive. Coupled with her exquisite and perfect appearance, their Nymphadora is really not competitive enough. Although Yi Feng did not have the ability to read minds, he still felt the faint evil thoughts coming from Lucius next to him. However, because it was not malicious, Yi Feng did not pay too much attention to it, because it was normal for Lucius to have evil thoughts towards him. After all, coveting his money, wooing him, and appropriating his interests are considered evil thoughts. However, although he had no ill intentions, it was not good to have him stay here, so Yi Feng took Zhang Chu to the sofa in the living room, pushed Zhang Chu onto the sofa and let her sit down, then turned back to look at Lucius and said, "Please take a seat. Our place is relatively small and there is nothing to entertain you. Do you want tea or a drink?" Tea bar, it's not easy to drink a cup of tea brewed by people from the East. Although my house was blown up by Yi Feng's magic grenade yesterday, it still takes a lot of time and energy to recover, and it is possible that I can only partially recover, but after hearing what Yi Feng said, Lu Hughes was not angry at all. He didn't know Yi Feng well enough before, so he thought he was just a slightly powerful genius, so after he knew that this guy was targeting his son in school, he immediately wanted to expel him. After all, they were pure blood nobles, but Yi Feng was a simpleton. The blood mudblood actually dared to compare them to animal pets. How could he endure this? However, after careful investigation, he found that Yi Feng was a huge treasure, and it was a huge treasure that Dumbledore probably didn't even realize. So he went out of his way to win over Yi Feng, even if he abandoned part of the dignity of a pure blood noble. Yi Feng pulled aboard their big boat. Of course, it would be best to let Nymphadora marry Yi Feng directly, and then take Yi Feng to their Malfoy family. Then Yi Feng will completely become a part of their Malfoys. As for reputation and other things, the marriage they can divorce, as long as they don't give birth to a child, it doesn't count as polluting their bloodline. Lucius sat on the sofa and didn't even drink the tea. He was imagining the future there. Maybe he thought too beautifully, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily raised slightly without noticing it. Zhang Chu happened to see this scene. This made him quite surprised. Zhang Chu, he can't bear such a big blow, is he crazy? Thinking of this possibility, Zhang Chu's eyes towards Lucius were filled with pity. This made Yi Feng, who had just made the tea and brought out the teapot, full of questions when he saw this scene. Yi Feng, katakana middle dot he katakana middle dot. Yi Feng was really full of questions at the beginning, but when he walked to the table and saw Lucius's uncontrollably raised corners of his mouth and his dull eyes, he immediately guessed most of it. What good thing is this guy thinking about? His laughter is almost coming out from the corner of his mouth. No wonder Zhang Chu's eyes have changed when he looks at him. As long as this guy has read today's Daily Prophet and sees his current expression, he will go in that direction. Yes, I do. Ahem. Seeing that he had walked to the table and poured the tea, Lucius was still in a daze. Yi Feng couldn't help coughing and reminded him. At this moment, Lucius just woke up from a dream. He instinctively raised his hand to wipe the corner of his mouth and then he said with an embarrassed look, "Sorry, I was a little lost in thinking about how to restore the castle." Yi Feng, Zhang Chu, Neither Yi Feng nor Zhang Chu believed it at all when they heard what Lucius said, because who would think about how to recover after their home was bombed and think that all the trouble would come out? This is true only for children aged 3 or 4, but no one over the age of 5 would believe it. Of course, one should not tell the truth after seeing through it. After all, Yi Feng still had some responsibility for the bombing of their house, so Yi Feng coughed lightly and said, "I'm sorry, but I hope everything is fine. By the way, is Mr. Lucius here to repair the castle?" Then you have found the right person. Let me tell you, although I am only a third-year student at Hogwarts, I am also minoring in architecture, architectural design, garden design, interior decoration, ancient building restoration and reinforcement, so you come to me, you've definitely found the right person. But I don't think there is much need to repair your ruined castle. It's already so old. It's better to redesign and build it now that it's been blown up. How about it? Since you are a regular customer, Mr. Lucius, I can give you a 30% discount. Lucius. Yi Feng's words immediately stunned Lucius. Even Zhang Chu next to him was so surprised that he opened his mouth wide. He looked so cute and adorable. If Lucius hadn't been right next to him, Yi Feng would have been so surprised. Feng Yu had the urge to hug Zhang Chu and kiss her hard on the little face. Ahem, that's no need. I came to Mr. Yi Feng to discuss another matter, but I didn't expect that Mr. Yi Feng actually has these talents. It's really, people can't be judged by their appearance. Hearing that Lucius rejected his proposal, Yi Feng's face was instantly filled with regret, because Yi Feng really wanted to help, and of course, he dug through the ruins of their home while helping. Look around to see if there is anything else that can be salvaged, such as Voldemort's Horcrux or something. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. Chapter 131. That's no need. I came to Mr. Yi Feng to discuss another matter. Yi Feng's face was instantly filled with disappointment when he heard that Lucius didn't come to him to renovate their old house or build a new one. After Lucius said this, he looked at Yi Feng. Zhang Chu next to Feng looked like he was hesitant to speak. Of course Yi Feng knew what he meant. He was just like this because he didn't want the third person to know what he was going to say, so he wanted Zhang Chu to avoid it for the time being. However, because of his so-called gentlemanly demeanor, he was too embarrassed to speak directly and let Zhang Chu know. Either leaving or asking Yi Feng to talk to him somewhere else, so he could only use this hesitant method to hint to Yi Feng. But Yi Feng didn't take his advice at all. Although he saw it, he pretended not to see it, and he didn't mean to remind Zhang Chu, because in his opinion, what Lucius said did not require avoiding Zhang Chu, and he didn't want to avoid Zhang Chu because it was unnecessary. Although he didn't spend as much time with Zhang Chu at school as he did with Harry and Hermione, Zhang Chu was definitely the one who knew the most about Yi Feng, because Yi Feng would not avoid Zhang Chu when he was cultivating, so Zhang Chu knew that he was an immortal cultivator. Even Yi Feng was able to tell Zhang Chu without hesitation that he was an immortal cultivator, and even took the initiative to teach Zhang Chu. This proves that Zhang Chu's status in Yi Feng's heart is actually quite high, and Yi Feng is also quite he trusted Zhang Chu, so he had no intention of letting Zhang Chu avoid him. But Zhang Chu is not stupid, she is also very discerning, so although she was a little slow, she quickly stood up and said apologetically, I just remembered that I forgot to turn off the water upstairs, you guys talk first, I'll go up and have a look. After saying this, Zhang Chu wanted to stand up. Seeing this, Yi Feng directly stretched out his hand to hold Zhang Chu's hand and said, you remember wrongly. The water was turned off when it came down. After saying this, Yi Feng turned to look at Lucius and said, Mr. Lucius, do you have anything to say? If it's not something more private, you can just say it directly. If it's more private, there is a study room upstairs. Although it's a bit small, the sound insulation effect is pretty good. Lucius is not the kind of person who has no discernment. When he saw Yi Feng just pulling Zhang Chu, he understood that Yi Feng did not want to avoid Zhang Chu, but what he said was really not the case if Zhang Chu was present. It was too easy to talk about, so after hesitating for a moment, Lucius nodded and said, let's go to the study to talk. Yi Feng was a little speechless when he heard what Lucius said, because he didn't need to think about it to know that Lucius was most likely looking for him because of the magic grenade, and he just wanted to cooperate with him to prevent him from spreading the news to others. Category: Yi Feng has not studied the history of the Malfoy family, but judging from the actions of the Lucius family in the play, it is probably not very honorable, and this guy is very ambitious and has a dark heart, so Yi Feng doesn't need to do more. You can guess the reason for his visit. It turned out that Yi Feng's guess was very correct. After entering the study, Lucius did not hide it. He said straightforwardly as soon as he came up, Mr. Yi Feng, I am very interested in your magic grenade. I wonder if you can make it. Leave the method to us, the Malfoy family. Yi Feng was not surprised at all when he heard what Lucius said. He replied calmly, what benefits can I get from handing over the things to your Malfoy family? After hearing what Yi Feng said, Lucius replied without thinking, you will get the friendship and support of our Malfoy family. Even if you want to be the Minister of Magic in the future, we will fully support you. Yi Feng. Mr. Lucius, do you think I look like a naive and easy to deceive 13-year-old boy? Lucius. After hearing Yi Feng's words, Lucius immediately realized that he had made a serious mistake. He regarded Yi Feng as an ordinary 13-year-old boy and still used his usual methods to deal with Yi Feng, which was to use himself. His power and reputation in the magical world are a big deal. This method is indeed very effective for ordinary wizards, especially for those who are eager for power. But for Yi Feng, his promise is not as tempting as a dime lollipop. Lucius immediately realized the problem, so he hurriedly made up for it. Of course, in addition to these, we can also pay a usage fee of 10,000 gold galleons every year. If you like, I had a good chat with you yesterday. That girl can come and stay with you tonight. Of course, in order to show the sincerity of our Malfoy family, if you are willing to promise to only hand over the making method of magic grenades to us and never leak it to anyone else, then we are willing to marry Nymphadora Tonks to you. Oh, by the way, Nymphadora Tonks's mother is Amito Tonks, who is Draco's mother's sister's daughter and Draco's cousin. In addition, she is a natural-born disguise magus, that is to say, as long as you marry her, you are equivalent to marrying. Lucius didn't finish what he said, but Yi Feng understood his words instantly. To be honest, Yi Feng was really moved, but it was not because of what Lucius said but because he suddenly thought of something. If you can study how this natural disguise magus changes his appearance, you may be able to find some inspiration for him to completely complete his transformation. By then, there will be another school of transformation in the magic world, half-animal animagus. The reason why Yi Feng dared to be so sure was not because of the cross, but because the half-beast animagus did have a huge advantage over the current animagus. His transformation technique not only allows people to stay completely sane after turning into an animagus, but can also automatically switch between full transformation and half-transformation. After switching to half-animal, not only can they have the power and characteristics of the corresponding animal, it can also maintain human flexibility and agility and can still perform magic like a normal human form. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that you can maintain a human body but possess the strength characteristics of corresponding animals is enough to make people crazy. After all, the human body is still very fragile, and the strength and agility are often not as good as those of some animals. If you can, as long as they maintain human form and can cast spells, they have the characteristics and powers of those animals, so they can have considerable power even without casting magic. Of course, these were all things that happened later, and Lucius immediately smiled when he saw Yi Feng seemed to be very interested in what he said. It's done. The rise of our Malfoy family will no longer be stopped. As long as we are given time, we will not be timid at all even if Voldemort comes back. Mr. Lucius, although your proposal is very tempting, I refuse. Lucius, why? Why? Do you already have someone you like? If that's the case, it doesn't matter. We can actually accept it as an underground lover, as long as the production method is given to us and it is kept strictly confidential and not disclosed to other people. Yi Feng. This time it was Yi Feng's turn to be shocked, because Lucius's words were indeed a bit shocking. They are absolute supporters of the pure blood faction. It can be said that they look down on wizards like them with muggle blood from the bottom of their hearts. But now, because of the manufacturing method of this magic grenade, he let a pure blood family's legitimate daughter be his underground lover. After saying these words, Yi Feng began to wonder if his magic grenade had any special functions that he didn't know about. However, Yi Feng still refused outright. Just kidding, although the natural-born metamorphagus girl Lucius mentioned is indeed a bit tempting, he already knows who it is. If you are really interested, you can just go to them directly. Why do you need to use magic grenades? Change the production method. Isn't it good for him to have it for free? Why? How can you refuse, and how can you refuse? She is the legitimate daughter of an ancient pure blood family. And she is also a transformed magus girl about the same age as you, with a mature and attractive figure, and a good appearance. Seeing Yi Feng actually rejecting his proposal again, Lucius was instantly angry, because that was the dream lover of many younger generations of their pure blood family, and Yi Feng was just a lowly person whose parents were both muggles. Just a mudblood. Seeing that Lucius was so angry that he instinctively put his hand into his pocket, Yi Feng immediately became vigilant. Although the Ministry of Magic stipulates that underage wizards are not allowed to use magic in the Muggle world, When underage wizards are threatened, they can ignore this rule, not to mention that this is still in their own, Zhongchu's family, so if Lucius really dares to take out the wand, Yifeng will make him understand what cruelty is. Lucius finally came to his senses just before his hand was about to touch the wand. He stopped himself in time to avoid a severe beating because he suddenly realized a terrible problem. Hi, wait, this Yifeng's parents are both muggles, so where did he learn so many magic-related things? As far as I know, he has come up with a lot of magic-related things. Even an ancient family like ours, Malfoy, and a magic school like Hogwarts don't have relevant knowledge. Realizing this, Lucius looked at Yifeng with a little more awe, and under the awe, he was even more greedy and passionate, because this meant that there was probably a person behind Yifeng who might be stronger than him. Dumbledore is even more powerful, and Yifeng's potential is far beyond his previous imagination. No, we can't delay it any longer. Nymphadora must take him down before the end of this holiday, no matter what, otherwise I'm worried about the long nights and dreams. Yifeng didn't know that Lucius was already thinking about him, and he was still coveting his body. Of course, there was someone else who really wanted his body in the end, but from another point of view, it was equivalent to Lucius coveting his body. Yifeng's body was injured. After all, it was not clear what the Nymphadora's attitude and thoughts in Lucius's mouth were. However, Yifeng was relieved to see Lucius calm down. After all, he was not a devil. He did not want to be charged with beating an old man who had just lost his home. Yifeng didn't know that Lucius had already made up his mind to let his niece cook with him during this holiday, but he was still very happy to see that Lucius had figured it out. So when Lucius suggested that if Yifeng had any cooperation intention in the future, the Malfoy family could be given priority, Yifeng readily agreed. Although he did not achieve what he wanted, Lucius also took the opportunity to learn a lot of news, so he was relatively satisfied with this trip, so he contacted Malfoy's mother's sister's family as soon as possible after returning, allowing them to rush to the Malfoy family's castle, the old site, as quickly as possible. When they saw the former site of Malfoy Manor, which had been razed to the ground, with almost no bulges on the real flat ground, Nymphadora Tonks, the Malfoy cousins' family, were immediately shocked, because they did not expect that this manor was blown so flat. Yes, it was flat, because the photo taken by the Daily Prophet was just a small area of ruins and did not really show the scene. After arriving at the scene, they discovered that things were far more terrifying than they imagined. Lucius, are you really sure this was caused by the explosion of a magic grenade that was only slightly larger than an apple? Nymphadora Tonks's mother, Amito Tonks, Malfoy, my mother's sister, couldn't believe what she was seeing. Yes, I'm sure, because I detonated that grenade myself. I watched it explode in my arms. I saw the terrifying destructive power tearing apart the castle where the Malfoy family had lived for hundreds of years. It was repeatedly ravaged and flattened, and not even the dregs were left. It is precisely because of this that I am so determined to propose that Nymphadora marry Yifeng, even just to be his underground lover. Because he can not only help us become the strongest in the magic world, a big family may even allow us to achieve great things that even Voldemort was unable to achieve before. Are you crazy? Do you dare to mention that person's name? However, Lucius was stopped by Amito Tonks as soon as he finished speaking, because he had the audacity to call their former master by his name. Hearing Amito Tonks' slightly horrified shout, Lucius smiled disdainfully and said, Voldemort. Have you not read the newspaper for a long time? I admit that his dark magic is very strong, but even if the most powerful magic he had ever had was far from comparable to the power of a magic grenade. What's more, Yifeng also has talismans in addition to magic grenades, and many high-level talismans are not necessarily weaker than those black magic. Armadado, Voldemort is dead, and even if he is not dead, he is old and outdated. The world of black magic is no longer dominated by black magic. Magic grenades and talismans are the only things that can truly control the magic world. As long as we can completely control Yifeng and have everything he has in our hands, then even if Voldemort at his peak comes, I will be sure to defeat or even kill him completely. You are really crazy. But you were right, we have been in the shadow of that person for too long, and he has been dead for a long time. Maybe it is time for a new Dark Lord to appear in the magic world, and this one, the Dark Lord, I hope his last name is Malfoy or Tonks. After Lucius's persuasion, the Tonks family was immediately convinced. As for Nymphadora's opinion, is it important? Unimportant. While the Malfoys and Tonks were excitedly repairing the Malfoy castle and thinking about the future, Yifeng was far behind. He was worrying about what to eat tonight. It's not that their family has no money, but there are so many recipes to choose from that they don't know what to choose. Finally, Yifeng, who hesitated for a long time, decided to take Zhongchu to have an original meal, and then they arrived at the beach. In foreign countries, because many people may not be good at handling some seafood, and they are not short of meat, eggs, milk and other foods, there are some restrictions on fishing, so you can catch a lot of good things even just on the coast. So, when the red sun was setting in the west, a small table and 2 small stools were set up behind a sheltered rock on the coast. At the table, 2 young people, a man and a woman, crowded together and watched the roasting in front of them. The squeaky seafood couldn't help but swallowed together. In the setting sun, Yifeng and Zhongchu were sitting side by side at a small round table facing the sea. They looked so harmonious and beautiful under the setting sun. If this scene could be captured, it would definitely be an intoxicating picture. Pity. Sure enough, the seafood just caught is fresh and sweet, and it is delicious enough without adding any seasonings. As he spoke, Yifeng picked up a lobster as thick as his forearm from the barbecue grill and twisted it, followed by a click. Pulling it out again, crystal white and steaming lobster meat appeared in front of the 2 of them. Eat slowly, be careful not to burn it. After quickly peeling off the lobster's shell, Yifeng handed the whole still steaming lobster tail to Zhongchu, which made Zhongchu, who had just finished his pull and carried the empty bucket, the passerby who was going home alone couldn't help but burped. The last 100 million rods. I can't believe that no fish bit the hook today. The passerby fisherman, who was suddenly stimulated, unbelievingly hung up the fake bait again and threw it out. Then the next second he screamed in excitement. That's what I said, right? There's no way I'm going to kill a turtle. Come up here. With the fishing friend's roar, something shining with colorful brilliance under the setting sun flew up. When he saw clearly what was flying up, the fisherman's eyes were filled with excitement. The color instantly turned into a dead gray. However, the fishing guys are indeed fishing guys. Their mentality and will are very strong, and they adjust back almost instantly. What a beautiful conch. Although I didn't catch any fish today and ate a big bowl of dog food, at least there is no air force. In a low voice, the strange fisherman put the conch shell into his bucket and hummed a tune. Go home. Yifeng, Zhongchu, O_O. The 2 people who were successfully attracted by the movement over there looked at each other in shock when they saw the unknown fisherman walking away. However, their attention was soon attracted back by the smell coming from the grill. They didn't say they were full at this meal, but they felt very happy. After that, there was no one in Zhongchu's family. Although there is no one in Zhongchu's family, there are small tents appearing all over the UK. However, this small tent usually only stays in one place for 2 days at most. After this small tent appeared near a dentist's home, although the tent did not change, there were a few more people entering and exiting the tent, which surprised those who happened to see them coming and going. While people are envious, they can't help but be amazed. How can such a small tent fit 7 or 8 people without it looking crowded? It's a pity that not everyone is like Yifeng and Zhongchu who can roam around without anyone caring about them, especially Harry. He only played with Yifeng and the others near his uncle's house for 3 or 4 days before having to go back. Even Luna, after playing with Yifeng and the others for a week or 2, I was called back. After all, not everyone has as much leisure as Yifeng and the others. In the end, only Yifeng and Zhongchu were left to embark on a journey of eating, drinking and having fun again, because even Hermione was taken back by her parents who were worried about her safety because she had been out for too long. When the vacation was about to end, Yifeng and Zhongchu were skiing in the Alps, playing hide and seek with the snow monster. Well, the snow monster hides, Yifeng and Zhongchu catch it, and if they are caught, they pluck the hair, let out blood, and other one-stop services. Of course, Yifeng is still very kind. Although a lot of materials have been collected from the caught snow monsters, this will not affect the normal life of the snow monsters. At most, they will be a little painful and a little cold. Snow monster. Ah, yes, he is right, it's just a bit cold, and I dare not come out of the cave when the wind blows, for fear that my fur is not thick enough and I will freeze to death. will let go of the snow monster that has always been full of humiliation, and the fur on his body can be seen to be thinner. Yifeng calculated the date and felt that it was time to return. After all, it was a new school year. Before the start of school, they also prepare some new school supplies. On the other side, Harry's uncle's house also received an uninvited guest. Of course, this uninvited guest is for Harry, because she is his uncle's sister, and his uncle's sister looks down on Harry's family, or Harry's mother to be precise, so she treats Harry's family, especially him, from the very beginning. The mother was extremely belittled. At the beginning, Harry could still bear it. After all, he had endured it for so many years, even if he couldn't sit on the table when they were eating, even if he couldn't sit on the table and eat. There were dishes to wash, which Harry endured until his uncle's sister mentioned his mother. Just as Yifeng responded to Malfoy when Malfoy insulted them as mudbloods, saying that only pets can keep their blood pure. When Harry's uncle's sister mentioned Harry's mother, she directly compared her mother to a dog. He also said that the reason why Harry is like this is entirely because his mother's bloodline is inferior. Just like a dog, he inherited the bloodline of a female dog. Shut up, shut up. Harry, who had endured this for several years, finally exploded. He stared angrily at the woman who was as fat as a pig. However, when Harry's uncle's sister saw that Harry was angry, she not only did not restrain herself, but turned to look at Harry with a disdainful smile, stretched out her finger proudly and said, "Listen, I'm telling you." However, the smile on her face quickly disappeared, because Harry was really angry. Out of anger, Harry let his huge magic power start to go berserk, and at this time, something completely different from the original show happened. In the original play, the angry Harry used magic to blow up his uncle's sister into a balloon, making her fly up and float away, but now, although the current Harry has returned to his uncle's house as in the original play, he has been influenced by Yifeng and is more courageous than the Harry in the original play. In terms of magic power, Harry, who has been doing morning exercises for 2 years, has become more courageous than him in the original play. The storage of magic power is at least half as rich as the original. As a result, not only Uncle Harry's sister, but also her aunt, his uncle's family, and the dog that his uncle's sister had brought all inflated rapidly like balloons and floated uncontrollably toward the door, eventually drifting away in the wind. His aunt opened her mouth to say something when she saw this scene, but in the end she said nothing. She glanced at Harry and then went to chase his husband and son. When Harry saw this scene, he suddenly realized that he was not sad at all. So he happily packed up his things and left this home, where he had stayed for more than 10 years. I don't know why, but Harry suddenly felt relaxed after leaving that so-called home, and he didn't feel like he had nowhere to go, because he still had friends, and except for the occasional minor accidents, his friends would always be there. All are quite reliable. But an hour later, looking at the closed door of Zhongchu's house, Harry fell into deep thought. When his neighbor Zhongchu and his family inquired and learned that no one had been seen in Zhongchu's house since the beginning of the holiday a few days ago, Harry almost shut himself up. Obviously, this is just a small accident. I can still go to Ronald. If not, I can go to the Broken Axe bar. Anyway, there are not many days left before school. But now there is an urgent question: how can I get to the Broken Axe bar? Just when Harry was sitting on the side of the road and about to doubt his life, a 3-decker bus suddenly appeared and stopped in front of him. Harry, who had been baptized by Yifeng's various things, was still very receptive, so he got in the car directly after understanding what kind of car it was. As for the experience of accelerating from 0 to 00 for 1 second, braking from 100 to 00 for 1 second, and changing from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions after getting in the car, Harry had a cold face the whole time, because these were a bit too childish compared to his previous experiences. As for Yifeng's broomstick, it can even break the speed of sound in 1 second, so this magic bus is just like that. In fact, Yifeng had always supported Harry in moving out. After all, other people were afraid of Voldemort, so they needed to let him live next to his blood relatives, so that the magic his mother risked her life to cast could protect him from Voldemort. But Yifeng doesn't need it at all. It can even be said that 99.9% of the students at Hogwarts don't have to worry about Voldemort in the short term, because Yifeng can at least get enough for each of their defensive talismans. Blocked 3 unforgivable curses, so if Harry had brought a bunch of charms, he might not be able to hit him even if he stood there and let Voldemort attack. Therefore, when Yifeng heard that Harry had moved out and blew up his uncle's family into balloons and flew them into the sky, he went straight to the Broken Axe Bar early the next morning. And when Yifeng and Zhongchu arrived at the Broken Axe Bar, they discovered that Hermione and Luna were also there, but unlike Ronald's family who were all present, they were all alone because their parents were busy with their own affairs. So I sent them to the Broken Axe Bar and then went back. In the bar, Yifeng heard the news about Sirius from Ronald's father. It was at this time that Yifeng finally remembered that Ronald's mouse was Peter Pettigrew, and that guy was an unrecorded Arnie. Mags. Tisk, what a mistake. I actually forgot about this. But you can't blame me. This guy is too cowardly and looks too much like a real mouse. It seems like we need to study it later. This guy has always maintained the form of a mouse. It's been many years, maybe some research can give me a lot of additional information. Muttering in his heart, Yifeng glanced at the mouse held in Ronald's arms. The moment Yifeng's eyes glanced over, the mouse transformed by Peter Pettigrew froze, but returned to normal in an instant, as if he was really just an ordinary mouse. When Yifeng and the others gathered together to eat snacks and talk about the fun things about the holiday, Lucius was almost going crazy, while his son Malfoy lowered his head pitifully and stood next to him like a quail, not even daring to move more. What's the use of me raising you? It's been a holiday, a whole holiday, and you haven't even sent a letter to Yifeng. If the owl can't send it, won't you ask Harry and the others to inquire? Even if it's a holiday, you haven't even sent a letter to Yifeng. If you don't tell them directly, why don't you ask others for help? Are you a pig? Feeling his father's spit on his face, Malfoy was filled with disgust but did not dare to hide. Although he felt extremely wronged, that was his father. He had been accustomed to listening to his father since he was a child. So even if he knew it was not actually his fault, he didn't dare to refute it. Isn't Lucius at fault for not knowing this? No, he knew, but so what? He doesn't want to discuss who is right or wrong now, he just wants to find someone to scold and vent his anger. After all, who would believe it? The Malfoy family and the Tonks family, who were famous in the wizarding world, searched for a whole holiday and still couldn't find Yifeng and Zhongchu. It wasn't just 1 or 2 days, or 1 or 2. This week, it's a whole holiday. But you can't blame them entirely, because Yifeng and Zhongchu didn't follow the routine at all when they went to play. Today they might be in London, the day after tomorrow they might go to Edinburgh, and in another 2 days they might went next door to Paris. So it's not that Malfoy and the others are incompetent, but that Yifeng and Zhongchu are just a little too good at running away. In addition, their family may be very powerful in the magical world, but their influence in the Muggle world is still a bit lacking. So when Yifeng was running around the world, they couldn't find Yifeng in a short time. Even Yifeng couldn't find their raw rice and cooked rice plan, so naturally it couldn't be implemented. However, this also made Nymphadora Tonks have a huge interest in Yifeng, because this was a relationship between the two of them. I almost used all my connections in the magic world to find the person who I couldn't find. It's a pity that Hogwarts is about to start school. Otherwise, I could meet you, the fiancé recognized by my parents. When Nymphadora lowered her head to express regret, Lucius finally vented all the anger in his heart. He also thought that Yifeng might have gone to the Broken Axe Bar, because Hogwarts will be in 2 days. School was about to start, and they needed to arrive near station 9 3/4 in advance, otherwise they would most likely miss the train to Hogwarts. Although he also knew that taking the train was not the only way to go to Hogwarts for Yifeng, who owned the heavy-duty broomstick industry, but generally speaking, all young wizards would choose to go by train because it was tradition. Therefore, Lucius glanced at Nymphadora who was thinking about something, then turned to look at his son Malfoy and said, "Now let's go to the Broken Axe Bar. If Yifeng is really in the Broken Axe Bar, then it will be your last chance. I will get rid of their parents and elders then, and you, please do everything possible to create opportunities for your cousin to be alone with Yifeng, and no one will be allowed to disturb them in the process. Do you understand?" Malfoy. Ming, understood. After hearing Malfoy's answer, Lucius nodded and turned to look at Nymphadora, and said gently, "Don't blame us for letting you make decisions on your own and deciding your lifelong events without your consent. We definitely are, for your own good. Although that Yifeng is a mudblood and an Oriental, he is definitely a genius, and whether it is body, appearance, or temperament, he is more outstanding than your cousin, at least 2 miles ahead of him. It can be said that no matter he is whether it's looks, talent or even future achievements, he is definitely worthy of you and can be said to be a good match. Malfoy. Thank you. I'm really sorry for being ugly. After making a decision and discussing a countermeasure, the Malfoys and Nymphadora's family rushed to the Broken Axe Bar. However, when they arrived at the Broken Axe Bar on the pretext of sending Malfoy to school, they were dumbfounded. Yes, Yi Feng and Zhang Chu did come to the Broken Axe Bar, but they left immediately after catching up with Harry and the others. Because they thought the Broken Axe Bar was too shabby, they went to find a more luxurious place nearby. A more comfortable Muggle hotel. As for the hotel, the staff at the Broken Axe Bar didn't know. Ronald's family didn't have a good relationship with Malfoy and the others, so it was impossible for them to tell Lucius, so they just went blind. Fortunately, there is still a little time, and this may not be bad news for Lucius and the others, because there are only a few of them. At that time, as long as they find a reason to separate those few girls, the rest will not be arbitrary. Played by Nymphadora. But is things really as simple as Lucius thinks? You must know that girls will not stay quietly in the hotel after getting together, especially when there is a big wallet following them. The next morning, Lucius, who finally found Yi Feng's hotel after searching all night, hurried outside the hotel. When he found the counter, he learned that Yi Feng and the others had already left early in the morning, and the counter didn't know where they were going. When he died, Lucius almost went crazy. Can't you stop running around and stay quietly in the hotel waiting for school to start? Lucius, who had been up all night after hearing the news, almost couldn't help but curse. Ni, who was originally interested in Yi Feng, Fedora's beautiful face was also full of fatigue, and the interest generated by curiosity was almost exhausted. Fortunately, they finally found Yi Feng's residence, and in order to avoid missing Yi Feng, they directly booked a room, and specifically chose the room next door to Yi Feng, so that as long as Yi Feng comes back, Nymphadora can directly the operation is carried out. Originally, they planned to let Yi Feng communicate with Nymphadora, but now they have no patience at all, so they decided to use magic on Yi Feng as soon as he comes back to make Yi Feng fall in love, Nymphadora, and then create some more ambiguous environments and let Nymphadora and Yi Feng cook the rice. But before their plan could be implemented, they broke through the defense again, because Yi Feng and the others did not come back until the sky completely darkened. When they waited until the flowers had faded, they saw that there was no one on the street outside, most of the people it was almost time to rest. Yi Feng and the others hadn't come back yet. They felt something was wrong and asked, only to find out that Yi Feng and the others had already checked out at noon. Lucius. Looking at the furious Lucius, Malfoy swallowed and said weakly, "Father, I actually wanted to remind you at noon, but you didn't let me speak." Lucius. Explain. Hogwarts will start school tomorrow. This hotel is a little far from Station 9 3/4, so I think they may find a closer hotel to live in today, such as the Broken Axe Bar or something. Lucius. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Malfoy. Humiliated. I wanted to say something, but you told me not to disturb you several times and drove me away. I didn't have a chance to say it at all. Lucius. Seeing Malfoy's unusually aggrieved look, Lucius let out a long breath and fell into deep thought. Am I too harsh on him? No, I have been like this before, but I didn't dare to refute my father. It seems that it is Malfoy's own problem. Why don't I take advantage of Narcissa and me? Are you still young enough to practice trumpet? Malfoy. For some reason, Malfoy suddenly felt a little cold on his back, but he didn't think about it and blamed it on not sleeping well last night and catching a cold. On the other side, Yi Feng followed Zhang, who had spent 2 days and bought a lot of things. Chu and the others had returned to the Broken Axe Bar to join Harry and the others. As for Lucius, although they were very reluctant and rushed to the Broken Axe Bar, they still missed the last chance because Yi Feng and the others didn't leave the room at all. Even if they went out to eat or something, they were always together in a group, so although she was unwilling to do so, the most she could do was let Nymphadora say hello to Yi Feng and leave a slightly better impression first. Yi Feng was also quite surprised when suddenly a beauty who was not inferior to Hermione and the others in appearance and even better in figure greeted him. However, Yi Feng was already used to being chased and intercepted by senior students at school all day long, so although the other party she looked very beautiful, but he didn't pay too much attention to it. After all, the most important thing around him was beautiful women. Of course, he still took one more look at the other party, but it was not because the other party was beautiful enough or had a good figure, but because he found that the other party had a special magic power, and that special magic power was concentrated on the other party's silk-covered face. A delicate and pretty face with a hint of familiarity. Zhang Chu, who was standing next to him, saw this scene. Although he had long been accustomed to it, he couldn't help but touch Yi Feng with his arm and joked, "A beautiful girl says hello to you again. Do you want to go over and have a chat?" Hearing Zhang Chu's words, Harry and Ronald were instantly interested. When they spotted the beautiful young lady not far away, they couldn't help but their eyes lit up. As for envy and jealousy, at first there was indeed a moment, but later they looked away because they had experienced too much. What's more, they have also looked away, which may not be a good thing for them. There is only one person, Yi Feng, and although he doesn't want to complain, Yi Feng's emotional intelligence in terms of relationships between men and women does have some problems, so if Yi Feng is not interested or annoys the other person, then they hasn't the opportunity come. Of course, they still have very professional ethics. If Yi Feng can chat with the other party, they will work hard to be Yi Feng's wingman and try to facilitate this matter. Moreover, if they really like it, they will pursue it seriously, not meet one and love one. However, Yi Feng is not very sensitive in this aspect, and the two little brats Harry and Ronald are not much better. As for the Weasley twins, those two idiots only think about pranks, finding girlfriends, etc., so for the time being, it doesn't appear in their dictionary. So although they thought each other was beautiful, they only glanced at each other and then looked away, which made Nymphadora deeply doubtful of her appearance and charm. Am I not getting used to the disguise magic during this period? It shouldn't be. I looked in the mirror before I came out. This appearance is absolutely stunning. Even if I am a little moved, how do they stay indifferent? When Nymphadora was about to doubt her life, a male wizard walked directly to the table where Nymphadora was sitting, saluted very gentlemanly, and then asked extremely politely, "This beautiful lady, may I ask? Would I have the honor of sitting at the same table with you?" After hearing this, Nymphadora raised her head and glanced at the other person. After realizing that the other person was quite handsome, she smiled and said, "Of course. It seems that it's not that my disguise magic and charm have declined, it's that there's something wrong with those guys. But that's right. A boy of 13 or 14 hasn't figured it out yet, so it's normal that he's not attracted to me." After thinking about this, Nymphadora regained her confidence, and the confident smile on her face made the young male wizard opposite her who pulled out the chair and was about to sit down elated. He felt that his happy life was about to come, and then, squeak, the sound of a chair mopping the floor was heard. Before he could sit down, Nymphadora's slender legs pushed the chair she was sitting on back a little, then stood up, turned around and left. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this scene, the Weasley twins burst into laughter, and Ronald reluctantly pushed a gold gallon in front of the twins, because he lost the bet, and the good-looking male wizard failed to compete with Nifa. Dinner with Dora. However, their laughter stopped abruptly after a few moments, because the beautiful woman stood up and looked towards them and smiled at them. The charm of that smile made their bones tingle for a moment even though they knew it was not meant for them. As for Yi Feng, he finally remembered why that face felt familiar to him. Isn't this the fusion version of Zhang Chu, Hermione and the others? And it has been specially adjusted to make the appearance more in line with Oriental aesthetics, so, is this the disguise magus? So, the Malfoy family is here too. While thinking to himself, Yi Feng turned his mind away for a moment and found Malfoy and his father Lucius sitting in the corner of another floor. She's really persistent, but to be honest, the girl's real appearance is quite good, but she has too personality. After his mind swept away the situation of the Malfoy family, everything fell into Yi Feng's mind. And this is also the reason why Yi Feng doesn't like to use spiritual thoughts, because it is too unchallenging and boring. If he doesn't limit himself and doesn't use the power of an immortal cultivator, then no matter what he does in this world with only low-level magic, it will be very unchallenging, because as long as he wants to, he can definitely do it, let alone Dumbledore and the others. Even the entire magical world might not be able to stop him. So in order to avoid losing interest in everything in the world at a young age, Yifeng restrained himself after discovering that this was a magical world for him, trying to convince himself that he was just a wizard, and tried to use the power of a wizard to look at problems and solve them. Unfortunately, the habits of more than 10 years are not easy to change, so when he encounters something interesting, he still can't help but take out some immortal things. Of course, it is limited to entertainment. Malfoy. Oh, yes, a magic grenade that can blow up a castle as big as ours is just entertainment. Of course, this doesn't mean that Yifeng really can't use the power of the immortal side. He doesn't use it. It's just that he feels that using the power of the immortal side is bullying others, so he doesn't want to use it. It's not that he can't use it due to being sealed. Therefore, when the Malfoy family had been chasing after him to plot something, and they were also suspected of bringing the disguised Magus girl, Yifeng was finally interested, so he took advantage of the situation. His mind scanned it. Of course, he only used his spiritual mind to scan to confirm whether Malfoy and the others were coming, and did not use his spiritual mind to detect their thoughts. Yes, although Yifeng doesn't know how to read minds, his spiritual thoughts are too powerful for ordinary people and even some wizards who don't understand occlumency. As long as he wants to, he can do it unconsciously. Invade the opponent's soul, see and read through the opponent's memories at will. Of course, this is also dangerous. If you are not careful, you can easily turn the opponent into an idiot or even die directly from the soul sea rupture. Even if the other party's thoughts are too strong, Yifeng does not need to invade the other party's sea of consciousness. He can directly know what the other party is thinking through the escaping mental power. Unfortunately, Lucius and the others had very strong thoughts at the moment, so Yifeng understood what they were planning with just a glance of his mind, which made him couldn't help but take another look at the retreating road. A graceful figure. Although Yifeng has little experience in the relationship between men and women, it does not mean that he does not understand the things between men and women. It is just because this body is still too young and certain conditions are not yet met. In addition, while cultivating immortals, I also cultivate my mind, so I haven't had many ideas. However, not having too many thoughts in this regard does not mean that he is a celibate saint, so when the delicious, braised pork was brought to his mouth, his heart could not help but beat hard, got up. However, some of the thoughts in his mind had not yet become inappropriate for children. A cute and delicate little face suddenly enlarged in front of his eyes until it was less than 20 centimeters away from him, which is equivalent to a distance of one head. Only then did he stop. Yifeng. Looking at Zhongchu's delicate and pretty face in front of him, Yifeng was startled, and when he saw the slightest trace of worry on Zhongchu's face, Yifeng's newly ignited flames were immediately burned away. He was pinched. He is still young physical age, and although the immortal cultivator's qi and blood are strong and stable, he will not suffer losses due to premature ejaculation of Yuan Yang, but if he tastes the forbidden fruit at such a young age, Zhongchu and the others will know about it, and then he will be in Huo from now on. Don't even think about messing around with Hogwarts. You know, he didn't know how many senior sisters' invitations he refused to play with them using the excuse of, I'm still young. If something really happened between him and Nymphadora and it was spread, then I'm afraid he would be considered a cultivator. Even the readers couldn't stand it. After all, the seniors' enthusiasm and love were no joke. So for the sake of his own future happiness, to reduce worries, and not to be regarded as a scumbag by Zhongchu and Harry, Yifeng decisively put an end to those little thoughts, at least not until he reached adulthood. Yifeng, who had put those thoughts behind his mind, returned to normal. Zhongchu and the others saw that Yifeng was no longer in a daze and had recovered, and smiles appeared on their faces. However, Sirius's jailbreak was a hurdle that could not be overcome after all, so you can still see a little worry in their eyes. But this worry soon dissipated, because the day came for them to return to Hogwarts, and as long as they returned to Hogwarts, let alone Sirius who escaped from Azkaban, Voldemort would be here. He also had to be slapped twice before he could run away. Yifeng's arrival not only captivated many senior students, but also made Hogwarts become extremely full of martial virtues, and the reason for this is very simple. Because Yifeng's various talismans make it easier for Hogwarts students to learn various magics and spells, it also makes it more difficult for students to stand out. What should we do now? Simple. Roll to death. Used a pure heart talisman to learn 5 magic spells this week. No, we can't let this guy pretend alone. I have to learn 6 of them this week. What? A certain top student in Ravenclaw received extra points for learning a very difficult high-level magic, and also received a concentration talisman as a reward. No, we at Hufflepuff must not be left behind. As a result, most of the magic that should have been learned and mastered in the 3rd grade was already mastered in the 2nd grade, and some gone emperors could even barely perform it in the 1st grade. More importantly, because of the protective talisman, a magical object that does not worry about being injured, magic duels are now quite popular in Hogwarts. The winning rule is whoever exhausts the opponent's protection first. Therefore, the current students at Hogwarts have mastered a large amount of magic and spells, and the subtle influence of morning exercises is also quite strong in magic. Therefore, if Yi Feng opens up the supply of talismans, the prosperous Voldemort will lead the army. It's really possible that you'll have to get slapped twice before you can run away. It is precisely with the strong strength as the backing to support Harry that they can have such confidence. Therefore, when the Hogwarts train arrived and a group of people stepped into platform 9 3/4 with salutes, the worry in their eyes was directly reflected in their eyes. Gone. Of course, Ronald's parents may not know much about the current Hogwarts, so they are still a little worried. There is nothing Yi Feng and the others can do about this, but when they got on the train and saw Yi Feng's actions, they were instantly relieved. He picked it up again because Yi Feng took out his little net bag again. Gulu. Yi Feng, why did you take out the net bag? Yi Feng. ***. Oh, I might encounter some rarer things on the way back to Hogwarts, so I plan to catch a few and study them. Hermione and everyone else. After hearing what Yi Feng said, Hermione and the others put down their luggage without even looking for a place. They took out various talismans and prepared them on the spot. As for taking out a small net bag of the same style as Yi Feng's, they were caught together with Yi Feng. They were frightened by Yi Feng's bag of spiders and refused. Hogwarts students don't have to worry about their luggage after getting it into the car, because there will be dedicated house elves who will help put the luggage away and move the luggage back to the dormitory after returning to school. Originally, Yi Feng and Harry did not need to do this because they had storage equipment, but because Yi Feng was really too dangerous, Dumbledore made a special school rule. This school rule stipulated that Hogwarts students should not board the train. Afterwards, the luggage must be placed in a designated place on the train so that the teacher can use magic to check whether there is any contraband. Although Yi Feng has not really caused any serious incidents, Dumbledore thought it was better to take precautions, otherwise Yi Feng, who knows how to tinker with so many things using things obtained from school, would bring back many materials from outside. What will happen next? Therefore, when Yi Feng and the others took out their talismans and net bags, they put their luggage in the designated place. But when they put their luggage away and tried to find a compartment that could accommodate the 4 of them, there was no suitable compartment. It's not that there are no seats. In fact, there are still many seats on the Hogwarts train, but many people sit with friends and are not willing to sit in a compartment with people they don't know well, so many compartments are not occupied at all. Full. So there are actually a lot of places, even if there is no one in the whole cubicle, there are at least 1 or 2. As for Yi Feng, he squatted on the spot and didn't move when Harry and the others were looking for the cubicle. It's not that he wants to be lazy and doesn't want to look for it, but if he follows Harry and the others to find the cubicle, Harry and the others won't be able to leave, because the seniors who see him along the way will try to pull him into their room compartment. Yi Feng had already experienced this when he returned home. He didn't want to look for it again, so he decided to wait until Harry and the others found it, not to mention that he had more important things to do. It didn't take long for Harry and the others to use the communication talisman to tell Yi Feng that the cubicle had been found. When Yi Feng moved forward quickly and found Harry and the others, they discovered that there was an adult man in the cubicle, and that adult man looked tired. He was sleeping in a corner, covered with a coat. Where's Hermione? Where did she go? Harry, who had already sat next to the adult man, heard the words and replied casually, "She was in the same compartment as Ginny and they said it was more fun and had more delicious food there, but I think she just didn't want to be with us." Men squeezed together. When he said this, Harry glanced secretly at the sleeping man next to him, and the meaning was self-evident. Hearing Harry's words, Yi Feng nodded and didn't care. After all, There are no strict riding requirements on the Hogwarts train, but generally speaking, students will spontaneously sit together according to the college and grade. Although Hermione ran away to be with Ginny and the others, this did not stop Harry from telling Yi-Feng and Ronald about how he blew his uncle's family into the sky and about Sirius, but Yi-Feng was obviously not very interested in this matter. He was more interested in the bonbon that Ronald had been holding in his hand and the unknown adult man sitting opposite Ronald. Needless to say, Scabbers was transformed by Peter Pettigrew, and if Yi-Feng, the tired-looking adult man opposite Ronald, guessed correctly, one of them is Sirius's good friend, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts class this semester. Teacher, Professor Lupin. As for why Yi-Feng knew, of course it wasn't because he remembered the original plot, but because the box above the man's head had the other person's name written on it. A wild animagus that has not been recorded in the records, and a werewolf that can transform into a moonlight knight. This is a rare opportunity. It is also a good dessert before the big meal. While thinking about it, Yi-Feng chatted with Ronald and the others while detaching part of his mind to use his spiritual consciousness to study the difference between the two. There were two different samples for him to study and compare. This made Yi-Feng's understanding of the transfiguration technique becomes more thorough and profound. During the chat, the sky gradually darkened and night slowly fell, and with the night falling, there were dark clouds in the sky ahead. Boom! The deafening thunder sounded from the front, and the dim light of the train illuminated the darkness ahead. With the dim light, the train was quickly heading towards the world shrouded in heavy rain. Paw, paw, paw. Dense raindrops hit the glass window. Fortunately, the sound insulation of the train was pretty good, so the sound was not too loud. They could still hear their chat with normal voices. Yi-Feng glanced out the window at this time. He took back his consciousness. After half a day of research and thinking, he has basically mastered the transformation technique. Next, he only needs to look at the process of their transformation from mice to humans and from humans to werewolves. The Yi-Feng version of the transformation technique that he has delayed for so long will be completely formed. But now was not the time to think about that, because the meal he had been waiting for so long had finally arrived. Bang! Suddenly, the train shook violently and then stopped quickly. This made many people on the train extremely confused and opened the compartment door and looked towards the aisle to see what happened. At this time, there was another sudden vibration, causing many people to stagger. Yi-Feng stood up almost as soon as the train shook and picked up the net bag next to him. Seeing Yi-Feng pick up the net bag, Harry, who was still wondering why the train stopped and wanted to go out to take a look, instantly widened his eyes. Then he and Ronald looked at each other and directly lifted up his clothes and took out his wand and prepared it in advance. Good talisman. Hey Yi-Feng, do you really want to go? It's raining heavily outside. After hearing what Ronald said, Yi-Feng turned around and looked at him and said, have you ever heard of a sentence? What words? The louder the waves, the more expensive the fish. Harry, Ronald. Q. No, don't you understand? Okay, let me put it another way. I will protect this train. After saying that, Yi-Feng carried his net bag and went straight to the nearest door of the carriage. Although Harry and Ronald were still full of questions when they saw this, they only hesitated a little and followed them. Hermione and the others, who were sitting not far from Yi-Feng and the others, also opened the isolation door and wanted to follow. It's raining heavily outside. You girls, don't follow me, I will take care of it. As he spoke, Yi-Feng pulled open the train door, but the amazing thing was that the rain did not blow away after the trains opened. Enter the carriage. Little soul, let me do it. Before Ronald and the others could figure out what was going on, Yi-Feng jumped out. After Yi-Feng jumped out, Harry and Ronald, who walked to the door, instantly shrank their pupils because they saw the sky in the distance through the rain curtain. There are a lot of unknown things swimming around. Harry, do I really want to follow him out? Heaving a sigh of relief, Harry did not answer Ronald's question but directly told him the answer through action. Hey, why don't you bring an umbrella or wear a raincoat? What if the talisman gets wet in the rain and can no longer be used? While shouting, Ronald also jumped out. Seeing Yi-Feng and the others go out, Hermione looked back, and then suddenly thought of something and reminded loudly, everyone, please be careful when taking out the wands and talismans. Yi Feng and the others must have discovered something, otherwise they wouldn't have known it. Out. As soon as Hermione finished speaking, Luna, who had always had strong confidence in Yi Feng, continued, "That's right, please spread the news to other students on the train. But there is no need to panic. There are all our Hogwarts students on this train. As long as we are not afraid and cooperate well, then I think there will be no difficulties in the wizarding world that we cannot overcome." As soon as Hermione and Luna said these words, the slight panic atmosphere on the train quickly dissipated, because both Hermione and Luna had quite good reputations in Hogwarts. It's not because they often hang out with Yi Feng and the others, nor is it because of their exquisite looks. The reason why their words are convincing is because of their achievements that dominate their entire age and their magical strength that far exceeds their peers. On the other side, a transparent round cover appeared next to Yi Feng, who jumped off the train, completely blocking out the rain. However, Ronald and Harry, who jumped behind him, did not get such a good treatment. The clothes they were wearing when they came out was soaked by the downpour in an instant, and even Yi Feng couldn't see clearly. Yi Feng. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. Looking at the tragic situation of the two teammates behind him, Yi Feng had a lot of question marks on his head. No, don't you two magicians shield yourselves before attacking monsters. Ronald, Harry, katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. When Yi Feng said this, it was Harry and Ronald's turn to be filled with questions. At this time, Yi Feng suddenly remembered that he had perfected and passed down the grimoire during the summer vacation. Although Zhang Chu was not taught the cultivation method at that time because it had not been tested, some practical little magic that can be used without practicing was taught. However, later on, because he was busy taking Zhang Chu around to play, it seems, and maybe was not taught. Give Harry and the others, so things like magic shields, they really don't seem to be able to do it. Oh, it turns out it's my fault. That's okay. Realizing that it was his own problem, Yi Feng calmly enlarged the magic shield and covered Harry and Ronald in. After covering the two of them, he casually cast a water spell to draw away the rainwater from their bodies. Let their clothes dry again. It's amazing. What kind of magic is this? Can you teach me? Ronald and Harry were shocked when they saw that their clothes were dry in the blink of an eye, and Ronald was even more excited and asked directly what this was. What magic? Yi Feng researched and created a magic book that can be used by wizards in this world to practice because they cannot cultivate immortality, so it is inevitable to teach them, but not now, because the Dementors are coming. There are so many Dementors here. It looks like there will be a bumper harvest this time. Ronald, what did you just say? Dementors. After hearing Yi Feng's words, Ronald, who was gearing up with a wand and a talisman in hand, instantly felt his legs weak because the name of Dementor was so deafening, because that thing can only be found in one place, Azkaban. Aren't they guarding Azkaban? Why are they here? Hearing what Ronald said, Yi Feng turned around and gave Ronald a strange look and said, "What's so strange about this?" Naturally, he came to capture Sirius. After all, he escaped from prison just to find Harry, so the Ministry of Magic sent these photographers. It's normal for ghosts to come and check out the Hogwarts train. Okay, now is not the time to discuss this, we are going to do it. Rise, Yi Feng shouted loudly, completely covering the three of them with a magic shield with a diameter of 3 to 4 meters, and flew them out directly. Harry and Ronald, who were caught off guard by this sudden change, screamed, and when they saw that there was nothing under their feet, they were so frightened that their faces turned pale. Yi Feng, can I take out the broomstick? I'm afraid of heights. When he said this, Ronald was already crying, and Yi Feng, he was completely distracted by the Dementors flying in front of him. It attracted all the attention, so Ronald's response was that the speed surged again. I haven't become a prefect yet, I haven't had a girlfriend yet, I don't want to die. Ronald's screams continued to echo in the sky on the rainy night, and although Harry was also pale, he slowly returned to normal after he tried to put his foot out and stepped on it a few times, and found that it was like walking on the flat ground next to him. Ronald, stop screaming. There is an invisible ground under our feet that is safe and cannot fall. Really? Ronald asked with a hint of tears when he heard Harry's words. When asking, he cautiously stretched out his foot to test. After discovering that it was indeed the case, the color on his face began to slowly return. As for Yi Feng, who controlled the magic shield and flew the two of them forward. He was so excited when he looked at the Dementors flying towards them in front of him. Certainly, when the distance between the two sides was less than 10 meters, Yifeng waved his left hand, and a soul-locking talisman came out of his hand and turned into a faint yellow light. The next second, it appeared on the Dementor's body, and was labeled with the soul-locking wind. The Dementor immediately stopped moving as if the freeze button had been pressed. Call. First, a little yellow light arrived first, and then a net bag covered his head. The next second after the Dementors were immobilized, Yifeng and the others whizzed past, and when they passed by, the Dementors who were immobilized in the air disappeared out of thin air, because at the moment when Yifeng and the others passed by the Dementors, Yifeng and the others passed by each other. With lightning speed, the Dementor was snatched away with a net. Dementors are born to be creatures that do not know how to tolerate, and they feed on people's various positive emotions. Fear should not exist for them, so although Yifeng used a net to capture him in an instant, one Dementor was killed, but the other Dementors showed no intention of retreating. However, Yifeng felt that this was still a bit too slow, so he turned back and handed a thick stack of soul-locking talismans to Ronald. Harry, help me find the Dementors that are relatively close. Ronald, you are responsible for immobilizing them. We will try to catch them all within 5 minutes. Good. Harry and Ronald, who had already adapted to flying without a broomstick, nodded excitedly, and Lupin, who had just woken up and glanced out the window, was petrified on the spot. Gee. Lupin, who couldn't believe what was happening in front of him, rubbed his eyes vigorously, and then he saw the 3 teenagers in the distant sky. One of them pointed the direction in a tacit understanding, and the other one threw away after approaching the Dementors. The talisman immobilized it, and the last person skillfully grabbed the immobilized Dementor with a net bag and stuffed it into the small cloth bag on his waist. Gulu. Oh God, are you sure that's the Dementor I know and not a butterfly? At this speed, you say they are catching butterflies. I believe it. One in a net. Isn't this too easy? The scene in the rain curtain was a bit too challenging for the 3 views. This caused Lupin's worldview to change drastically, and under Lupin's gaze, Yifeng and the others also quickly changed. After being captured by Yifeng in a net bag, most of the Dementors no longer approached the excited Yifeng and the 3 of them, but chose to bypass them and fly towards the Hogwarts train in the distance. Dementors feed on people's positive emotions, and at this moment, Yifeng and Harry are in excitement and joy. Logically speaking, this kind of emotion is what Dementors like best, and this should be their eyes. As conspicuous as the bright moon in the dark night. However, now they have given up on the more conspicuous and more delicious Yifeng and the other 2, bypassing them and continuing to fly to the Hogwarts train, which is a bit intriguing. How is this possible? Dementors are afraid. Yifeng and the others were still confused. Lupin on the special train did see something, but it was precisely because of seeing these that Lupin was even more shocked. Although Yifeng did not see that the Dementors were afraid of them, he could see that these Dementors were trying to run away. He had waited for so long and came out in the rain. Now he had just caught a few Dementors and they wanted to run away. How could Yifeng agree? So he turned back and snatched the soul-locking talisman from Ronald's hand. Want to run? Have you asked me? Definitely. As Yifeng shouted, all the stack of soul-locking talismans in his hand were knocked out by him. However, because he did not use his spiritual consciousness to lock them, not every one of them successfully hit. However, although not every one of them hit the Dementors, he threw enough soul-locking charms, so although a lot of the charms were wasted, all the remaining Dementors were still immobilized. Shoo shoo shoo. As a ray of light quickly swam from the night sky, the Dementors that were immobilized in the sky were swept away. When Yifeng stuffed all the Dementors into the bulging bag around his waist, he took Harry and the others back. At that moment, Lupin, who finally saw the faces of the 3 people clearly, slowly opened his mouth. How can it be different from Lupin's shock? Although Hermione and the others also saw this scene, they were just surprised. Even many students at Hogwarts saw it. However, except for the first-year freshmen who just entered this year, the other old students behaved relatively calmly. After all, even the students who have just entered the 2nd grade have already been at Hogwarts for a year, and during this year they have already seen all kinds of extraordinary things about Yifeng, so although I was surprised to see someone catching the Dementors at first, when I thought about the 3 people who caught the Dementors, I felt a little normal. The only thing that puzzled them might be why there were only 3 Dementors instead of 4. After all, the 4 of them were together most of the time. Although they also felt that Hermione was only implicated in many very outrageous things, this they were a little surprised not to see Hermione again. Therefore, when Yi-Feng, Harry and Ronald broke through the rain and returned to the train, they were greeted with a warm welcome. Unfortunately, the aisle of the carriage was a bit too short to allow a few people to stand, otherwise the 3 of them would definitely be caught and thrown up. Of course, even though I wasn't thrown up, it was inevitable to be caught and share what happened and what my mood was. Not long after Yi-Feng and the others came back and closed the door of the train carriage, the train continued to move forward. If the noise from the carriage hadn't proved anything, many people would have thought that the scene just now was just an illusion. It took more than half an hour for Yi-Feng to finally escape from the crowd, and when he squeezed out of the crowd to follow Harry and Ronald back to the compartment where Lupin was and closed the door, Yi-Feng let out a sigh of relief. Phew, I finally escaped. As expected, when there are more women, it is the men who suffer, and the same goes for girls. See, Harry and Ronald burst into laughter as soon as Yi-Feng finished speaking, but they were relatively restrained and stopped it in time, but this still made Yi-Feng angry. You still have the nerve to laugh. Are we still brothers? You saw me being besieged and just didn't help me. Instead, you pushed me into the crowd and used me as a shield. Do you know how dirty those seniors and junior girls are? If I hadn't held on tightly, my waistband would have been ripped off. And I discovered that those male classmates were also ruthless, and they would even if the talisman was pulled from my body and taken away, they actually pushed me into the arms of those seniors. Ha 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 ha. As soon as Yi-Feng said this, Harry and the others couldn't hold back anymore and burst out laughing. Lupin, who was next to him, looked at the 3 laughing children in front of him and felt a little dazed. He thought of his school days. It's so beautiful. Lupin's sigh made Yi-Feng and the others finally realize that Lupin, who had been sleeping before, had woken up, so they quickly apologized. Sorry, Professor Lupin, we spoke too loudly and disturbed your rest. Lupin was a little flattered to see that the sunny boy who had just returned a Dementor in his bag actually apologized so politely. He quickly waved his hand and said, "It's okay. I woke up a long time ago and watched for a while how you captured them. Ghostly. But you should be careful. Although I don't know why you want to capture the Dementors or how you do it, the Dementors are the guards of Azkaban. If you do this, the Ministry of Magic it will be at your door soon." Hearing Lupin's words, Yi-Feng pretended to be stupid and said, "Dementors? What Dementors? Harry, did we go out just now?" It was not the first day that Harry and Ronald were together with Yi-Feng, so they immediately understood what Yi-Feng meant, and they also pretended to be stupid and said, "No, right. It's raining so heavily outside. How could we run out and get wet if we're not stupid? Where is the rain?" After Harry finished speaking, Ronald said, "That's right, and the Dementors are the guards of Azkaban. They are terrifying magical creatures that can only be repelled by the Patronus charm. These students who are just about to enter the 3rd grade, even the Patronus if you don't even understand the curse, how can you possibly capture that terrifying Dementor?" Lupin. Not. Although he was speechless, Lupin had to silently praise the 3 people's witty responses. As for reporting Harry and the others, that was impossible. After all, the reason why he appeared on the Hogwarts train was to help his best friend Sirius. It can be said that Harry would be happiest if they captured the Dementors. It would be best if they captured all the Dementors that came out of Azkaban, so that Sirius would not be in danger. As a result, there was silence in the carriage. After waiting for a while, Professor Lupin took the lead to break the silence. "Can you tell me what you used to immobilize the Dementors?" "Professor, you are wrong. There are no Dementors, and we have never been out." Lupin. "Okay, you have never left this compartment. I mean, if a Dementor appears in the compartment now, what method should be used to drive it away?" "Oh, in the case where the Patronus charm cannot be used down." Yi-Feng. "Oh, Professor, you have asked the right person this question. Let me tell you, Dementors. The new semester has officially begun. The new little wizards crossed the Black Lake in the dark like they did before, and walked along the path from the lakeshore to the brightly lit Hogwarts Academy on the mountain. However, the scene they saw was different from the previous one. What Yi-Feng and the others saw at first was slightly different. Look, There is an exquisite cabin there, and there are bright lights. I have never seen this kind of lighting. That's an electric light. But why don't you see any wires? Lamp, are they something from the Muggle world? But this is the wizarding world, Hogwarts. How can there be anything from the Muggle world here? Wait a minute, look, there is actually a stone road over there. And there are lights on the roadside. Hagrid. Oh, are you talking about that over there? It was built by one of your seniors named Yifeng to facilitate fishing on the Forbidden Lake. Occasionally Principal Dumbledore will come to throw a few rods. After hearing the previous sentence, the little wizard who knew something about Hogwarts was about to ask if the Forbidden Lake was not forbidden to approach, when he heard the next sentence. That's okay, but who is that senior named Yifeng? He can actually build a wooden house on the edge of a forbidden lake that is explicitly prohibited from approaching at will, and he can also let Principal Dumbledore come over to fish occasionally. Dumbledore. Originally I refused, but the more times I was caught, I got used to it. And fishing is indeed a sport that can calm people down quickly. As for why fishing is a sport, you will understand why fishing is a sport when you cross the river with a large fish that can reach 2 meters in length. The young wizards have already become extremely curious about Hogwarts before they even step into the door, and the reason why they have such great curiosity is just because of one name, Yifeng. Follow closely. The lake is dark and slippery, so don't fall behind. Seeing that the little wizards had all come down, Hagrid, who was holding an oil lamp, nodded and turned around to walk towards the path that was almost covered by weeds. This filled the minds of the little wizards following him with questions. Professor, why should we take this dim path here, which has no street lights and is almost completely covered with weeds, instead of taking the stone road with street lights over there? Hagrid. Katakana middle dot underscore katakana middle dot. The student's words directly stopped Hagrid. Yes, why don't we go that way instead of this way? But why do we have to go that way? Every year I lead the freshmen to enter this way. This is our Hogwarts custom. Oh, I remembered, this is our Hogwarts custom. Hagrid, who finally remembered, looked at the doubtful little wizards and replied, this is our Hogwarts tradition. The new little wizards come here every year. You won't have to do this next year. Although they don't know why Hogwarts has such a tradition, the little wizards have no doubts anymore, but when they trip over the weeds under their feet again and again, they can't help but look at the neat and bright slate on the other side. Road. The instigator of this incident was currently sitting in the dining room of Hogwarts, playing with a doll in his hand. In the eyes of others, what Yifeng was holding was just a weird doll, but Dumbledore, who already knew what happened on the stage, was full of sadness. Especially when he saw the doll in Yifeng's hand, he couldn't help but rub it. Rub your temples. This little one is really capable of causing trouble. He gave me such a huge surprise on the first day of school. Fortunately, not many people saw it, and what happened was a bit too outrageous. I hope that the group from the Ministry of Magic can be let's fool people. Rubbing his temples, Dumbledore looked away with a look of pain. When he saw Professor McGonagall opening the door and walking in with the newly admitted little wizards, a smile finally appeared on his face again. Ah, sure enough, the new little wizards are pleasing to the eye. Look, how innocent and cute they are. No, we need to educate them more. We can't let Yifeng lead them astray. Thinking of this, Dumbledore couldn't help but glance at Yifeng again. Because of Yifeng, the old students were not worried. Now let alone night tours, even the outer edges of the Forbidden Forest are almost trampled by these students, causing the magical creatures that originally lived on the outer edges of the Forbidden Forest to move deeper. Otherwise, these daring guys would really dare to imitate Yi. The wind came up and picked up the hair on these magical animals. Yifeng. Katakana middle dot he katakana middle dot. Yifeng, who was glanced sideways by Dumbledore, raised his head if he noticed it, but at this time Dumbledore had already turned his head away, so Yifeng, who raised his head, only saw Lupin's friendly smile. Although they didn't know each other very well, Yifeng still understood the courtesy, so he politely smiled back at Lupin, which made Lupin a little flattered. Yes, flattered. Before, he just thought Yifeng was mysterious and interesting, but when he came to the school and met the teachers, he had a little chat with Dumbledore and learned what Yifeng had done, and he was a little scared. Putting aside those talismans and flying broomsticks, just the fact that Dumbledore praised him openly and secretly was enough for Lupin to pay attention to it. What's more, Lupin also realized something from Dumbledore's helpless expression, and there was probably nothing Dumbledore could do about it. Yi Feng. It's not that Lupin thinks Dumbledore can't beat Yi Feng or anything, but he can see from the helplessness on Dumbledore's face that Yi Feng definitely caused a lot of trouble for Dumbledore, but in the end Yi Feng was not expelled or even punished. It's a bit intriguing. Judging from the fact that Yi Feng dared Harry to capture the Dementors and Dumbledore did not punish him after he came back, Lupin felt that this was not the first time something outrageous like this had happened. Therefore, when facing this person, no matter who asked the old student, the answer he gave him was something like, Yi Feng. He is a very powerful and good person. I even think he is more powerful than the professor. Lupin felt that he was still friendly. A little is better. Things proved that Lupin's idea was correct, because after the school song was sung, Dumbledore introduced him to the students, and also announced that the Ministry of Magic would let Dementors settle in Hogwarts, and asked the students to be careful not to let the Dementors find them. When he announced the banquet with a reason to hurt them, looking at the sumptuous and luxurious Chinese food in front of him, Lupin finally understood how powerful Yi Feng was. But his shock had just begun, because when he sat back and raised his head after eating, he discovered something that shocked him. The roof of the restaurant was actually empty. Professor McGonagall, is the roof of this restaurant gone? Won't the wind and rain affect the people in the restaurant? Oh, you said this. The roof was blown up when Yi Feng first came to Hogwarts, but he has a magic circle on the roof, so Professor Lupin, you don't have to worry about this problem at all. Gulu. Exploded. Flied. Well, it blew up, and we don't know where it went. Hearing Professor McGonagall's words, a drop of cold sweat fell from Lupin's forehead, because he remembered that Azkaban was almost destroyed by a roof attack 2 years ago. That's right, I didn't expect that the joking in the Quibbler was actually true. It was actually the roof of Hogwarts. It's a pity that no one believed it. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.